Part 251. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2507. Mom, your eyes are drooling, hee hee. Mom is so embarrassed that your eyes are drooling with such big eyes. The little girl in her arms pointed at the corner of her mother's eyes, covering her little mouth and giggling as if she had seen some shocking news. Mom, where can I find it? Satsumakan didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and quickly wiped the corners of his eyes. How could Jia-yan, who was fishing, not know this? In fact, he can know everything he wants to know about the entire earth, but there are many things that he doesn't want to worry about. Sometimes the strong ones are just pretending to be confused. They know many things well. Hey, there's a fish on the hook, pull it out quickly. Oh no. Ha ha ha, I ran away. What's going on? After drinking, I can't even control it. Dad, teach me how to control it tomorrow. I have been away from you for so many years, and it seems that my control ability has not improved. Okay. Dad, why don't you teach your grandson next time? I'm afraid his talent is not as good as mine. Xiao 11, hee hee, don't worry. In fact, he is already growing, and I think his talent is not only not inferior to yours, but also higher than yours. Ah! Dad, who am I? Now that I'm back home, I will definitely look at my family. I can find that kid Xiao 11 in the Empire now. What? Didn't he say he was going on a trip? Why did he end up in the Empire? There's no war there, no. Xioxi is in danger. Don't worry, I'm here. Oh. Early the next morning, Jiarong covered his forehead as soon as he got up. Having a headache is one thing, but the other is that he remembers what he did and said in front of his parents last night. How embarrassing. What a headache. Oh my god, the plan Dad set up is so terrifying. Morning, son. As a result, the first person he faced was Jia-yan, who was brushing his teeth and walking over from the other side of the RV. Good morning, Dad. In the end, he had no choice but to endure the discomfort and say hello to Jia-yan. And after this greeting, he found that the shouting was not so awkward anymore. The relationship between the two parties seemed to have become closer after what happened last night. When Jia-yan turned around, he was also smiling. Okay, I finally got my son. Although it seems that there is still a slight gap between the two parties, as long as I continue to work hard, this gap will disappear. Why didn't I realize earlier that the relationship between family members is easier to maintain than I thought, because they are family members after all? Jia-yan smiled. Many things can be easily solved by just changing some ideas. His failure to solve these problems in the first place was more due to unwillingness than inability to do so. And this is also a true portrayal of many families. Many problems can be easily solved by lowering one's head or being a little more proactive. But unfortunately, people are unwilling to let go of their dignity towards the people closest to them. This is for families, it is actually the biggest problem. He is willing to get close to his son. Doesn't his son accept him? Nothing is difficult. You have been bullying your son since he was a child. Satsuma was sitting at the dining seat of the RV, speechless to Jia-yan. People on earth say that they are old boys. The older and stronger this husband gets, the more he becomes an old boy. This old man is very bad. By the way, I will put more energy into Xiao 11's side in the past 2 days and bring him back directly, so don't worry. Okay. While Jia-yan was having breakfast, he directly stated his next plan. And this also received a grateful look from Jiarong. Fathers are good for their children, just like themselves. Jia-yan thought about this shamelessly, and then quickly poured more of his mental power into the stone man's clone on the other side. He said that he would bring people here in the past few days, but he did not mean to bring Jia 11 to the earth forcefully, but that there was a step-by-step process. The ultimate goal of this process is to allow Gia-11 to rely on her own abilities to escape from the inside of that small civilization to a safe universe. This can be considered a complete training for Gia-11. Senior, do you think that in the past few days, the powerful people coming from the outside will launch a strong attack on us? It's possible, but you don't have to worry. We are strong enough to deal with them. Your combat effectiveness is higher than that of ordinary venerables. In addition, there are also 2 venerable-level strongmen of the civilization nearby who brought a large number of senior officials to the city near the base. Gathered together, with your 3 noble-level combat capabilities, it is definitely possible to deal with them. In the base in the magma, although the base is floating with the magma, the base at this time is no longer as worried as before. At least everyone already has a backbone and spiritual support in their hearts. That would be Gia-11. As an Earthling, he is looked down upon by outsiders and thinks that there are not many strong people on Earth. But if this Earthling's identity is the Gia family of Earth, it will be different. Because although there are not many strong people on Earth as a whole, the Gia family is an exception, because the strongest person in the entire Orion arm, and the pillar of the entire Orion arm, is one of the Gia family on Earth. Therefore, no one would be surprised by this magical family, no matter how powerful it is. Gia-11's identity was widely spread among the people in this base. Because everyone needed to know his identity, Gia-11 did not stop him. Of course, with such a large-scale publicity and a base that has connections with the outside world, it is logical to publicize this matter. Anyway, for the enemy's top brass outside, the information about Gia-11 here is probably already known to everyone. This incident has been spread across the home planet of the entire civilization, and some people have even spread the video of Gia-11's victory over the 3 great sages on the internet. This has given the entire small civilization's resistance army great motivation. What people are afraid of is not whether they will die, but that even if they die, there will be no strong people behind them to support them, and they will waste their lives and make useless efforts. But now that Gia-11 is in their civilization, people think that the opportunity has come. Even if Gia-11's combat power cannot play a decisive role in the entire war, it will definitely give them this small civilization. Inject new strength. Senior, who are you? I really want to know. In her room, Gia-11 held the sword in her hand and asked hesitantly. He has owned this magical weapon for a long time. Relying on the power of the sword, he has defeated so many enemies that were impossible to defeat. But until now, he still has not found out the true identity of the senior. This is a huge regret for Gia-11, because his senior is like a real gift to him, and he has saved his life several times because of his senior. Who I am is not important. What is important is how you escape from this civilization. Otherwise, even if you know who I am, what's the use? It's useless to say anything if you're dead. The sound that seemed to come from the sword made Gia-11 fall silent. Okay, senior, let's make a bet. If I successfully escape from this civilization, then you will tell me your name, okay? I really want to know. Of course you can, but the task I give you now is to leave the civilization within 3 days. Beyond this point, you will never know who I am. This is my request. Do you think you can do it? I can. 3 days in 3 days. Gia-11 hesitated for a while, then nodded firmly. He believes in his own abilities and believes that with the guidance of his seniors, he can do it. Not long after, he found Suya in the command room. Suya, are you studying the route again? Have you found a suitable route? Gia-11, who originally didn't think much about the surprise attack, became quite enthusiastic today. Yes. We just want to find you, Gia-11. Look, there is a small dot in the starry sky. See it? No one knows about this place except this base. Gia-11 put her eyes on a star map in Suya's hand. I saw a very small dot in the star map, and it was not a phenomenon that existed in the starry sky itself, but something that was drawn by humans using a machine. In other words, if you don't have the star map in your hand, even if you really go there, that starry sky is nothing more than an ordinary starry sky. What is this little dot? Gia 11 asked. It is only 3,000 kilometers away from the home planet of the civilization. It can be said to be just outside the planet. On the surface, you may not see much, but do you know? This civilization was also ambitious at the beginning and wanted to try space jumping. Technology, through subspace, gravitational wave space, and even space folding technology, many gadgets have been studied. Although these gadgets are just tricks to our empire and are very low-tech, they are still research. Some key technologies have been developed, such as this small point. Huh? Do you mean? Gia 11 was very smart and understood what Suya meant instantly. It is impossible for Suya to talk about research issues for no reason. It must be something related to this topic, so it can be inferred from this that this little point. Could it be the original research? Yes, you guessed it right. This small point 3,000 kilometers away is exactly a small gravitational wave system traversal technology arranged by the space. Although the technology is quite immature, 5 explorers have entered it. After this gravitational wave system, they lost their lives, but I think that as long as we use it properly, we can still use this gravitational wave hole. Really, the hole in the gravitational wave system? Gia 11's face changed slightly, looking at the starry sky map in front of her, wondering about something. Boy, promise her, I'm afraid this is the only optimal solution for you today, and you have to know that I only give you 3 days, you can find other plans, let alone escape from this civilization in 3 days, can't even leave the base. In Gia 11's ears, she heard such a strong man's voice. Gia 11 was stunned for a moment, and then his eyebrows straightened up. Yes, he has a shortcoming in doing things, and that is that he likes to make plans and act later. Although this kind of character can be considered a good thing, if he encounters an important moment and has no momentum, that is also a huge character flaw. To do this, you must be a strong person who can have both strategy and drive. Otherwise, what would you call a strong person? Suya, I have decided to use this gravitational wave cave entrance, and I will be ready to go out at night. What about you? If you don't leave, I can go by myself. I will go from subspace alone, even if it is very dangerous, it's big, but at least it's better than staying here and waiting to die. Gia 11 said with a firm expression. Ah! 11, are you so decisive? This is no small matter. At least let us use war chess simulation software to deduce it tens of thousands of times. Tens of thousands of times. How long will it take to wait? Haha, forget it, since you want to cherish your royal life, I won't accompany you. I'm afraid it's better to leave by myself, but I don't think we will in the future. If there is another chance to meet again, I will prepare now. Goodbye. Gia 11 sneered, then turned and left. No. Gia 11, do you think so of me? Okay, if you do, I'll leave too. Anyway, without you, this base will be finished. Just leave. Fight to the death. Suya's face was extremely ugly and she gave a sweet drink. But she didn't wait for Gia 11's comfort and advice. Gia 11 just turned around and grinned at her, but this smile was a little ferocious. Princess Suya, I am very happy to cooperate with you again. Well, now that I have decided, let's make preparations quickly. The preparations for the negotiation between the base and the upper management will also start now. By the way, if the respected officials of the 2 cities above, if you want to join forces with us, let them start preparing now, at 9 o'clock in the evening. If you are not ready by then, don't blame me for leaving alone. After saying that, Gia 11 left the command room ruthlessly. He was like a man without any emotion. He made Suya so breathless that she couldn't even lift her breath and suffocated her to death. Princess, why is it so sudden? Should we take action with him? If not, let's let it go for a while, even if it's tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Next to the princess, her maid and bodyguard, covered in injuries, said hesitantly. No need, I think what he said is right. It was our mistake to be hesitant. There were so many ideas on the battlefield. We were wrong before. We should have escaped on the day we killed the 3 great lords. But now that we have been out for so many days, the enemy has formed an encirclement again, causing us to miss another good opportunity. Now that we know the whole of this small gravitational wave system, it is an opportunity for us. Maybe tomorrow the enemy will find the hole and hide it? So, let's just do it today, fight it out and tell the 2 seniors that we will start taking action at night. If they are willing, we can join together. If they are not willing, forget it. The princess really felt a little tired. The events of the past few days have made it clear to her that a talented royal princess cannot really play the role of setting the cauldron. The person who really has this ability is Jia 11. Please remember the first domain name of this book. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2508. In this incident, the Jia family once again overwhelmed the royal family of their empire, making everyone understand that the reason why the Jia family is in today's position is not for other reasons, but because of excellence. At least Jia 11 was good enough to suppress her, the daughter of the royal family, in every aspect. Suya's imperial upbringing also allowed her to suppress her frustration with Jia 11 and choose to deal with the matter rationally. She chose to leave with Jia 11. Soon, a lot of work was being carried out rapidly within the entire base. The thousands of researchers and various workers who were still alive, as well as more than 100 combatants, all became nervous. The reason is simple, because the imperial princess they have been following issued an order to make a breakthrough tonight and escape directly to space. Of course, if it were just an imperial princess, maybe they wouldn't think it was worth risking their lives to follow her. After all, the imperial princess here was not very strong. She only had a maid from the peak of starry sky beside her, and she was injured, so it didn't count. Too strong. But the problem is that under this order, the princess also followed another news, that is, she also said that this matter was proposed by Your Excellency Jia 11. If they don't believe in the princess, then they are convinced by Jia 11 and want to follow her. After all, Jia 11 has already demonstrated the ability to kill the venerable level in the past few days. Moreover, even in terms of identity, Jia 11 Your Excellency's status is probably even better than that of the imperial princess, because he is a member of the Jia family, the top family in the Orion arm. He has both strength and identity. If they don't follow such a being, then who will they follow? Your Excellency Jia 11 actually gave the mission to leave. Why did Your Excellency Jia 11 suddenly announce his departure? We cannot imagine what a being who has reached the level of venerable strength is thinking. Although Your Excellency Jia 11 and Your Highness the Princess are about the same age, his temper and personality are very different. There is a feeling of disparity in the character of both parties. Sure enough, there are differences among excellent people. Yes, I always feel more at ease following Master Jia 11. Well, there is no need to say so much now. Now that we have made a decision, let's do our best. Whether we live or die, it depends on tonight. After passing through a conversation with staff in the corridor, Suya, who happened to be inside, listened to everything. Suya was a little depressed. Obviously, when Jia 11 was not fighting, she was one of the main people who dominated the base and stabilized a lot of military morale. But in the end, she did so much. In the impression of others, she was just excellent, far inferior to the outstanding Jia 11. There is no need to compare. In the universe, if your strength is inferior, you are inferior. No matter how good you are, it is useless. Alas, Suya is still a 16-year-old girl no matter what. Although she knows this truth in her heart, she often can't calm down when the situation really arises. Princess, it's almost time. Come to the information room. We will look at the information later and then go to the command room together. They have already discussed the route. The maid's voice appeared in Suya's communicator. Okay, I'll be there right away. Time is of the essence. Even if it feels a little uncomfortable, it is impossible to waste time here. When Suya arrived at the data room, she found that the leader of the escape incident, Jia 11, had also arrived. This outstanding young man from Earth behaves at this moment as if they are not preparing for an extremely dangerous operation, but are doing some ordinary tasks. Suya keenly discovered that from the beginning of her acquaintance with Jia 11, the young man had grown a lot, even much more than herself. So she felt even more discouraged. What's wrong? Come and sit down. Jia 11 looked at the strange-looking girl and asked, somewhat confused. Suya quickly put aside her sour thoughts and sat down in her seat. The explanation is about a tactical analysis expert. Originally, such experts used their tactics on war armies, but because he was in the base at this time, he just tried his best and used it in this small escape mission. However, what seemed like a small escape mission turned out to be the most terrifying level of difficulty he had ever encountered in his life. Because during this escape, they will face the pursuit of as many as 10 or 20 noble creatures. So he was extremely nervous, fearing that if anything went wrong, it would not only affect his reputation, but also his own life. After my calculations and planning, our route is like this. This tactical analysis expert's analysis was accurate to the millisecond level, but listening to his talk, Jia 11's face became strange. Not only him, but also Suya next to him looked strange. Well, Master Wuka, the plan you mentioned is very good, but in this part of your plan, do you think everything is too rigid? For example, in your plan, you need the unconditional help of the two sages above. We even need to help us resist several powerful enemies, but in this case, what if these venerables only care about their own lives and choose to abandon us? For example, at this point in time, and at this point in time, you didn't even considering the possibility that they will abandon us. Suya had no choice but to stand up and raise her doubts, or what Jia 11 also doubted. Well, the so-called tactician's face turned red for a while. As soon as Suya interrupted him, a group of people who were listening to the analysis of the master tactician all reacted. They all wanted to cheer just now, but Suya immediately realized that this plan was not very reliable. Don't talk about anything else, just say that everyone must follow the plan completely, and even the enemy must follow his plan. How can it be? Okay, our plan ends here. The general route is like this, but whether there will be enemy interceptions on the way and what kind of battles there will be depends on the situation at that time. For us, said, this is a relatively unknown and not so easy mission. Now I won't say whose plan is, but what I want to say is that you must make it clear to all your subordinates. Whatever happens, any regardless of the situation, you must do your job well, because in this mission, whoever fails may lead to the death of everyone. This is an event related to the overall situation. If anyone does not do well, I may directly punish them. Kill, do you hear me clearly? Jia 11 stood up calmly and said to all the senior officials present. Okay. It's better for your excellency Jia 11 to do it. Although I felt lonely listening to the plan, hearing Jia 11's harsh words was actually a kind of encouragement. In short, everyone really respected Jia 11. Jia 11 looked at the so-called tactician master. After hearing so much, he knew that this man must be unreliable, because what he said was all theoretical, and he even seemed to have figured out the enemy's actions, but will people do what you say? This is probably because the civilization has been wrapped up in the empire and has no military capabilities or actual combat capabilities all year round. This has led to all the high-level officials becoming theoretical, which means there are many impractical things. After reading a lot of information in the information and chatting about the Lonely Queen, a group of people immediately rushed to the command room. At this time, there was not much time left before the escape plan could begin. Have you communicated well with the two powerful men from the outside world? As soon as Gia-11 arrived at the command room, she asked her own question. We have communicated well, but one of them is not very willing to take risks, especially not willing to take sudden action in such a short period of time. Even if he wants to take action, he must prepare for it for 2 days. Oh. As soon as Gia-11 heard this, she knew that that person must have cherished his life. And if all of this was done according to what the tactician master just said, it would be over at the beginning, because in his plan, the two sages not only joined this mission, but also risked their lives to kill them. This group sent planets, but now looking at the actual situation, people don't even want to join, let alone risk their lives. Let me have a chat with that guy. Gia-11 looked at the other party's information and then said casually. Okay. The contact soldier looked at Gia-11, and then felt a sense of peace of mind. Unlike Gia-Yan, Gia-11's personal charm seems to be quite great. Even if he only looks like a young man, everyone who sees him seems to be full of confidence in him. Not long after, another venerable level communicator was connected here. I've said it several times, I won't do this kind of risky and ill-prepared mission. Please ask the lunatics in your base to go crazy themselves. Huh? Who are you? The person on the other side of the line was a middle-aged man. He originally thought he was trying to comfort his base soldiers, but when he saw that the person was unfamiliar, he suddenly started asking curiously. Hello, I am from the Geo family on Earth. My name is Gia-11. Your Excellency, I won't say much. This mission requires your help. And what I know is that if you don't come with me, if you do, maybe in a few days, you will be dug up by your roots by the enemy and you will be dead. I believe that as a person outside, you know what I am talking about most clearly. Gia-11 didn't say much nonsense like meeting etiquette, because he knew that time was running out. Even if someone thinks that he is not polite enough and refuses to act together, he will still set off. It is just that he will be more dangerous without a venerable level combat power. Your Excellency, are you the young man from the Geo family? You are indeed a very young man. After hearing Gia-11's self-introduction, the venerable man showed a trace of respect on his face. For such venerables, many of whom had experienced the original war, the Geo family was like giants in their eyes. They only had reverence and no hostility at all. The venerable Gia-existing thought for a moment, and then shook his head. Although you personally came to invite me, I still think that your preparations are not sufficient. I don't know how you came to the conclusion and suddenly wanted to break out today, but what I know is that if you don't do it well, be prepared, we must not be able to escape. The venerables on the entire planet have probably been preparing for the escape of our group of strong men. You are in the magma, and they can't do anything for the time being, but as soon as they show up, the attack will come directly to you. I think it will be difficult for you to break through the atmosphere, so I will not obey the order. Gia-11 nodded. I understand your concerns very well, but what I want to say is that we are not unprepared. As early as when I killed the 3 venerables, our base had already started preparing to escape. For us, we may not have prepared much, but for us, we have been fully prepared for a long time. Although this preparation may not be sufficient, I know in the past 2 days that the upper levels of the enemy seem to be a little bit changed. Should be the weakest defensive situation, so if you don't join our action, we won't wait for you. Of course, no matter whether we fail or succeed, you will be alone on this planet. You will inevitably die in the end. If you come with us now, you might have a slight chance of escape. What do you think? The Venerable was very upset and is also unhappy. He originally thought that if he didn't join the action here, they would probably give up the adventure. After 2 days, they would be ready, and then they could join forces to break out. But I never expected that the Geo family here would be so determined to break out of the encirclement today, and I don't know if they want to die in a hurry. He opened his mouth, with bitterness in his voice. Forget it, I will act with you, but please don't leave dangerous tasks to us. We still want to live. I have a Venerable here, that is, me, 5-starry sky level, and the remaining heaven level earth level there are dozens of people. I hope you won't waste our lives. It will definitely not happen. I promise in the name of the Geo family that you are welcome to join. Gia 11 smiled. The soldiers beside him, as well as Suya who followed, were secretly speechless, feeling that the Geo family's name was quite useful. I didn't see Gia 11 using any great principles or words of wisdom to move people, but they just fell for his tricks and agreed to take risks with the base. Okay, it's all settled. Get ready for the base to transform, and the combatants to get ready for battle. Our goal is to bring everyone to safety. Okay. Safe zone. We will all survive. With Master Gia 11's leadership, nothing will happen to us. Suya was on one side, watching everyone become very passionate because of Gia 11's words. She fell silent again, because she felt that although the young man in front of her didn't talk much, he had something that she didn't have. Thing. Please remember the first domain name of this book. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2509. In the night that has just entered dusk, the entire civilized planet is brightly lit. The seemingly prosperous scene is actually just superficial. Because in this light, less than half of it truly belongs to the people, and the other half is basically projected by the occupying forces from all corners of the planet. They are carrying out the final conquest of this planet. A large number of resistance armies and a large number of civilian guerrillas have been cut into small pieces by them. As long as they work harder, the entire civilization's home planet war will quickly finish. Don't think that all of this has happened for a long time. In fact, when the invaders arrived, it was only more than half a month ago. And earlier, the entire planet under the protection of the Empire was simply singing and dancing. The taste of war has been felt in a peaceful country that has not been tried for hundreds or thousands of years. However, in just half a month of war, the peaceful civilization that had developed for thousands of years was transformed into a different one. A large number of homes were destroyed, a large number of humanoid creatures died, and a large number of resistance troops died on the battlefield. Of course, there were also a large number of civilized humans defected to the enemy, and even in turn, threatened other compatriots in the civilization. The entire history of war is full of traces of blood and tears. But for such a grand poem, if this civilization fails in the war, they will surely perish, and no one will help them record all this. At most, it will become a small corner of history that no one remembers. No matter how hard you are, no one knows at all. Haha, the resistance on this planet is weaker than we thought. It seems that just like our intelligence, this civilization has not gone through too many wars at all. They don't know how to fight in their bones, and they don't know how to resist. Yes, in 3 days at most, the suppression of this civilization will be completely over. By the way, as mentioned above, the last few hard bones will start to be pried off tomorrow. Didn't you have a relationship with a respected person on this planet last time? Have you ever fought in a level battle? How strong do you think the venerable level of this civilization is? Ha ha ha, you're asking me how strong I am? Are you trying to make me laugh? If the venerable level of this civilization is called the starry sky level, I would still find it interesting, but the venerable level? I almost laugh. The venerable level 1 died in one hit. At that time, I almost thought that I had found the wrong person and found a star level 1. Ah! Is it so weak? I see, this civilization has not had a war for a long time. Even if there are strong men who have cultivated to the venerable level, their combat effectiveness is probably extremely low. Moreover, the Orion arm is already extremely weak. For us, among the strong men in this star field, no one of the same level is as strong. Of course, the yin and yang dao they have created recently needs to be paid attention to. We have all heard more than once that the yin and yang dao defeated the same level. There is no news about the level, but here, there are not many people who learn yin and yang tao, so don't worry. Yin yang dao? Well, we do need to pay attention. Alas, after all, it is because there is a Jia Yan in this Orion's arm. The strength of that guy is really disappointing, even if there is that person behind us. Although we have the support of others, the galaxy-level adults in our star field are still unwilling to come to the Orion arm, which shows how deeply they fear Jia Yan. Forget it, let's not talk about this. By the way, there will be no problem tonight, right? No, those few possible venerable level strongholds have been closely watched by us. Once they make any changes, our venerable level ones on this planet will come out in force and wipe them out in one fell swoop, so there is no need to worrying, not to mention that they are all scared by us, and now they are huddled in their own defensive strongholds, thinking that they can stand still and wait for help, but they may not have thought that we will close the internet cafe tomorrow. Ha ha ha, that's good. People on this planet really don't understand war. They can't even calculate the time for us to close the net. Especially that base. They thought there was someone hiding in the magma who could defeat the enemy. Ordinary powerful men at the level of venerables can rest easy. Tomorrow we will definitely let them. Boom. In the quiet night, the two venerable beings were discussing matters together, but after they talked about the so-called base, an earth-shattering explosion made both of them change their expressions. What sound? It seems like there is a sound that breaks through the surface of the earth. This is not good, it's the guys from that base. They actually escaped. Damn it, hurry up and inform the others that we are going to stop this base. Sir, in addition to the enemy troops in this base who have begun to flee, in the city above the base, the two venerable level enemy troops under our surveillance have also made strange movements. What? Sorry, they have actually started to join forces and intercept them quickly. Although they surprised us a little, charging and escaping like this is just looking for death. The enemy army on this planet seems to have completely not expected that the civilized strong men who are extremely greedy for life and afraid of death and do not have much correct military judgment will actually make an extremely bold move today, escape from this fallen planet. To them, the defenders on this planet were like trash. They fought with them back and forth, but when it came to the key battles, it was all because of the inexperience of the forwards. This resulted in this was the final defeat of the entire war. Of course, they also understand that for a country with no war experience at all, it is impossible for them to fight well, not to mention that their coming troops are not just troops of peaceful forces. They already have a reputation for being evil and cannot be compared to ordinary peace troops, so they deserve to win. But today, the biggest hidden danger on the planet, which was also the base immersed in magma, suddenly broke through, catching them by surprise. So decisive, what have you done? All the enemies don't know why the strong men in this base have chosen to break through now, even though they don't have any good opportunities. Although they were caught off guard, because the dragnet had been laid out long ago, no one thought that the flying base personnel could really escape. In the original base, now the part of the base, that is, the part of the base that can be transformed into a spaceship, when it broke through the surface of the Earth and flew in the sky, a large number of research workers and people with ordinary combat capabilities were all howling like ghosts. They were not only screaming because they were accelerating too fast, but also because when they took off, a large number of various artillery fires and strong men were focused on them, and they were howling like ghosts. When they really saw the defensive measures taken by the outside world against them, they immediately understood that they had already prevented their escape. So many battle preparations were made to welcome them into the gate of hell, which was extremely frightening. 22.5 degrees to the left. 18.7 degrees to the right. Slow the acceleration by 2.3%. It was just that in the initial stage when they thought they were definitely going to die, there were so many artillery fires, attacks from strong men, and a lot of small interference, but at this moment, it seemed that they had actively avoided the sudden take-off from this base. The person driving the base spaceship is the layman in the entire base who should not be piloting it in the first place, GA-11. Yes, GA-11 was the last person who should be flying in this situation. Apart from being able to fly small Earth-type aircraft, he had zero experience with large alien aircraft. But for some reason, when people in the base heard that GA-11 was going to pilot the base spacecraft personally, everyone fell silent and chose to believe him. After all, GA-11's performance allowed everyone to see the magic of the Geo family, and they believed that even if a strong person couldn't fly a spaceship, their reaction and judgment skills should be top-notch, at least comparable to this. The best driver within a base is stronger. As a result, GA-11, who didn't even know how to operate, was quickly sent to the line of fire, and he started to operate bravely. It's just that others don't understand that GA-11 dares to ask for it. It's not because he really has self-confidence or anything. In fact, it's because he has a plug-in that he is so bold that he even dares to directly use things he has never operated before. Get started. Wow, I just took a shot. Senior, is your advice really correct? One shot. One shot is nothing. I let it hit on purpose, okay. This shot is the least threatening in the salvo just now. If we don't take this shot, we will have to take another, stronger shot. The other artillery fire, maybe one shot will wipe out our spaceship. Which one do you think is better? Well, this shot is definitely better. Senior, I'm sorry, I doubted you. Please continue to give me advice. Humph. Slow down your speed by 2%. Very good. You see, the cannonball just fired is a weapon that will explode our spaceship once it is fired. Just dodge it, and another 100 to the left. A 50-degree turn, right, that's it. This originally extremely heavy spaceship seemed to have turned into a nimble little fat man in the air. What was even more amazing was that it was like a prophet, dodging most of the threatening artillery fire among countless artillery fires. Only those artillery fires that are really unavoidable and are only a small threat will hit it. Rather than a hit, it is better to say that it chooses to take these small artillery fires. The entire spacecraft's dodge was as if it had the help of the most sophisticated brain. How is this possible? I'll do it myself. Anyway, their escape speed has been slowed down by the artillery fire. A venerable creature was below the earth, watching the rising spaceship. It actually soared to a very high place under their noses. If they didn't stop it, he might really escape, so he snorted coldly, "Fly towards the sky." "Haha, Your Excellency, you are wrong. Didn't we set off a rocket? You actually want to destroy it? Have you asked me?" Suddenly, next to the venerable, another venerable level voice appeared suddenly, and then had a 50-50 fight with this huge venerable level creature. This is a civilized venerable level powerhouse who has been hiding near the base, preparing to cooperate with the inside and outside of the base to do something. He was also among those whom GA-11 contacted before. "Bastard, don't think that we don't know that you are hiding here. We have known about it for a long time. You just don't want to provoke the strong people in this base. Now since you are seeking death yourself, don't blame us for being ruthless. The venerable level creature roared, and its fighting movements were quite fierce. After all, for giant creatures like them from the outside world, even though they are at the same level, it is absolutely unforgivable for them to be tied with creatures that are thousands of times smaller than themselves. But unfortunately, the strong human-looking man he fought with was really an extremely powerful being. To be able to survive until now in this war, he was definitely strong enough, so compared with the venerable level creature in front of him, a tie is not a problem. Die. On the other side, another venerable class didn't want to chase the spaceship in the sky, but he aimed at the civilized venerable class and hit him. He was preparing to join forces with his partners to kill this human venerable class, and then go after the rising spaceship. But at this juncture, the voice of another powerful master came from beneath the earth. Don't forget, Your Excellencies, we meet again. Another human venerable level creature suddenly appeared next to the two invading venerable level creatures, resisting the enemy venerable who had just suddenly made a move. The battle between the four venerable levels suddenly broke into chaos in the sky above the land. For this battlefield, the venerable level was the strongest struggle, so it looked like the destruction of the heaven and earth, which was extremely terrifying. With the help of these two great masters, everyone on the ship was relieved as the spacecraft flew away from the sky. Fortunately, we have communicated with these two adults, but what will they do now? We left, and they were trapped in this war zone. Hey, don't think that they will really die for us. They are just borrowing our strength. Look, there are two big venerables below them blocking us, but there are bigger obstacles ahead of us. What if we were able to break through that barrier, and they were able to follow our lead, so they weren't that stupid? There are still smart people inside this spaceship. When some of them were moved by the actions of the two human beings, these smart people pointed out their purpose. Yes, the people on the spaceship want these venerables to help clear out some enemies, but these two venerables are ready to use the momentum of the spacecraft to rise and escape from the planet together. Woolen cloth? So after all is said and done, they are just using each other. The only doubt is also the point of greatest concern for the two venerables below, how the people in this spaceship, or to put it more directly, the Geo family member, will face the sky above. Other venerable levels. Please remember the first domain name of this book. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2510. If they could only block the power of the two venerables they were dealing with now, they would have escaped from the planet long ago. Why are they waiting for Gia 11 to help? In fact, they are afraid of. It is a higher power. Ha ha ha, the creatures on this planet, as well as the people who may be from the Geo family of the Earth civilization, are simply brainless fools. Do they really think that our blockade from the outside world is that simple? Show me. The power of our army on this planet will show these escaping useless enemies what real terror is. Along with the entire battlefield, there was a surge of momentum, and various venerable level powers spread out from all over the planet. The turbulent energy surge enveloped most of the planet. After that, various energy rays flashed out from the sky and came to the sky above the battlefield. The half of the base that took off was just a spaceship. Its actual flight capabilities were far inferior to those of assault warships. Moreover, during the takeoff process, there were a large number of attacks that hindered their takeoff, resulting in the extremely slow speed of the spacecraft. This also allowed powerful men of various powers who seemed extremely far away to quickly approach this realm of sky and earth. More than a dozen rays of light came, and their appearance gradually changed from just a burst of energy light spots to various monsters several hundred meters in size. The surviving people on the entire Earth were silently watching this scene. As well as the resistance forces, all lost their voices. These are more than a dozen venerable level beings. And they are not just ordinary venerables, they are all extremely terrifying strong men in this battle area. Each one of them is a prestigious guy, the type who can stop a child from crying with his words. It's over. It's almost over. Why do they move so fast? They are obviously at the venerable level, but they can actually come to the battlefield here collectively, and it only takes such a short time. This is incompatible with the plan I thought of. It's different, I miscalculated the time. The master tactician who had planned the escape plan in the base felt dizzy for a while in the command cabin of the spacecraft. He felt that the reality was much more dangerous than he imagined. The plan he made urgently, it is simply not in line with the current actual situation. If this operation was actually based on his plan, I am afraid that people in the spaceship would already be panicking because things deviated from what was expected. Of course, even if he does not act according to his plan, I am afraid that the hearts of the people in the current spaceship are still floating. After all, no one is blind. The dozen or so venerable level beings who have arrived are like mountains, pressing down on everyone. On the head. Snort. Gia-11 snorted coldly. He was originally controlling the control lever of the spacecraft, but now after snorting coldly, he let go of the control lever and handed it to Suya beside him. Me. I can't do it. Suya shook her head nervously, but was pulled to the front of the control lever by Gia-11. I know that you are the only person in this spaceship who has received official Imperial warship training. Your driving skills are definitely better than everyone present. Believe in yourself, I will come back as soon as I go. After Gia-11 threw the burden on Suya, she sneered and looked at the dozen figures displayed on the screen. Then she stepped on her foot and entered the subspace with the blade of her sword in hand. You must know that the preparation time he spent on this day was not in vain. For this operation, he once again asked his seniors to help him practice group combat and make better use of his subspace talents. Among them, it's more of a battle simulation against being besieged by many people who are much stronger than you. What he didn't know was that the person who was feeding him was Jia Yan, who was also a senior domain master and his own grandfather. Although the feeding move was only aimed at a Starry Sky level powerhouse, Jia Yan also used it. With a lot of brain power, many things were specially developed for Gia-11 for all the venerables on this planet. Therefore, Gia-11, who seems to be relatively weak in this battle, and should even be said to be dead, actually has some advantages. Of course, whether all these advantages can be used as effectively as they should on the battlefield depends on Gia-11 how is his ability to perform in battle. There have been too many examples in the past that illustrate that even if a strong person is incredibly strong during training, as long as his performance is unstable or his mentality is prone to problems when facing a battle, it will be useless no matter how strong he is during training. Jia Yan is quite satisfied with this point. At least his grandson Gia-11 showed his mental stability in the last battle against the three great sages, and he still had a bit of the impulsiveness and passion of Jia Yan when he was young. This is quite beneficial to the growth of a strong man. As long as it is not overdone and leads to death, the slightest impulse of emotion is actually a magic weapon for victory. At this moment, Gia-11 had the momentum again, and without waiting for the enemy to attack, she penetrated a distance of dozens of kilometers and suddenly burst out of the subspace. Huh? Did you actually take the initiative to attack? Is this the Qiyun of the Geo family? It is really no small matter. The venerable who was regarded as the first target by Gia-11 was a creature whose hands turned into swords. He was more than 200 meters tall. In front of him, Gia-11, who had just stepped out of the subspace, was like a small ant. Generally. But no matter what the ant is, Gia-11's previous battle of killing three great lords, and the identity of his Geo family, it would be a fool if the coming lords don't take him seriously. However, they are not fools. Many of them have dug out a lot of information and conducted research on this Geo family before they arrived. Therefore, it can be said that they are not careless at all, it is just the tricks of the Geo family. And strength are really elusive, so even when they faced Gia-11, they still didn't know the depth of this young man. But one thing is certain, that is, the young man in front of them is just an 18-year-old kid on Earth. No matter how fast he cultivates, he cannot be much stronger. They have strong doubts that the young man has previously defeated the three great masters, just used some powerful weapons from their Geo family, or secret books, and after using them once, they felt it was worth a gamble to see how much power these secret weapons had left. Everyone, you blocked my way, Gia-11, so you must die, I'm sorry. Gia-11's words shocked Jia-Yan, who was deeper in the subspace. He felt that his grandson's pretense skills were much better than his own, and he also spoke in a high-sounding manner. He was worthy of being a child born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and he was well educated. Jia-Yan quickly made a note. If he encounters a similar situation in the future, he can learn to speak like his grandson. I saw Jia-11 in mid-air, slashing down with a sword, and a long white sword light appeared in the entire sky. Pyridine. The blade of the sword, which seemed unable to even cut through the skin of a body 200 meters away, was like a magical weapon, cutting directly into the skin of the creature in front of him, and then slashed all the way down, causing the monster to scream and roar. In addition to anger, this roar was more frightening and shocking. What kind of starry sky is this? This is a high-level venerable, right? How can he resist this sword? It's like resisting a strong man who is much stronger than himself. In the end, the strong man took a step back with an ugly expression, and then looked at the knife-shaped arm he was resisting. There was a deep sword mark on it. If his arm is not broken, it must be considered that he has grown extremely tall, otherwise one arm will definitely be broken. What kind of sword is this? He stared closely at the sword in Gia-11's hand. He knew very well that the sword just now was definitely not Gia-11's own power, but the sword played a great help. The sword that kills you. Gia-11 sneered, slipped into the subspace, and dodged the opponent's knife-shaped arm just before it struck. Whoo! The blade struck the air, and the sound of a clash of weapons was heard in the subspace. Gia-11's subspace ability is still too weak and can only enter the shallow layer of the subspace, so the blow of this venerable level person who knows how to attack the subspace still caused part of the attack power to spread into the subspace. After Gia-11 retreated from a distance, she saw that his body and clothes were a little messy, and his hair was flying. He was a little embarrassed, but definitely not injured. This guy? Amazing. Farther away, there were three figures who were close to each other, and they were already approaching. One of them, a powerful man of the lower rank of the Venerable, showed shock in his expression. If the Geo family had magical weapons, they would not be shocked at all. Even if Gia-11 took out some kind of weapon and killed them all instantly, they would not be surprised. After all, it was the Geo family, a legendary family. But now, what they saw shocked them even more than the Geo family's terrifying weapons. Because although Gia-11 also used some kind of Geo family's weapon, the weapon was not an active attack type and required him to have a very powerful swordsmanship and movement operator, and this was what shocked them. Gia-11 was actually able to adapt to such a weapon, and in the battle against the Venerable level, he used the power of the weapon to fully demonstrate his mere starry sky level combat power. This is terrifying. In other words, as long as Gia-11 has the magic weapon in his hand, he can only be regarded as a true Venerable level. Moreover, his strength fluctuates up and down, and no one knows what kind of treacherous tricks the Geo family has. Don't be careless, come together. Kill. Even if we have to face the wrath of the Geo family in the future, there is nothing we can do. These several seniors, as well as some of the seniors coming from behind, roared together. They had already made a decision before starting this war, that is, to kill Gia-11. Even if they offend the Geo family, they will not hesitate, because their forces are already at war with the Orion arm. It is inevitable to face the Earth Alliance and the Geo family in the future, so they will face it now. It's just that the time has been moved forward a little bit. Well done, I'll let you wait and see. I don't just rely on the power of my family. Gia 11 has long been unhappy with these venerables, who all regard themselves as the third generation of strong family members. Now that they are attacking with real swords and guns, he will not hold back anymore, or should I say. He didn't hold back much just now. The first blow was to see if the combat skills he learned from the illusory space could still be as sharp in actual combat. Now it seems that all his training can be reproduced in reality, and when he just fought with the strong creature with a big sword, he was keenly aware that this guy's fighting style and fighting reaction were different from his own. I have encountered it in the illusory space. This discovery made him ecstatic. If before setting off, his confidence in himself was less than 30%, but now, his confidence suddenly increased to 70%. The remaining 30% was because he was worried that there would be some strong person present, a type he had never faced in the illusory space, and he would be unlucky. Pyridine. Another sword strike. Gia 11 didn't hide in the subspace for too long. She came directly behind a venerable and slashed out with her sword. The sword drawing technique is much stronger than the sword drawing technique. When a sword is drawn out, sword light scatters in all directions. The key is not the sword light, but because there is the maximum explosion of positive and negative forces on the scabbard. Find a book garden. He had already been brewing in the subspace for a while, so the sword light he drew was infinitely powerful. Although he borrowed the positive and negative power of the sword and scabbard, he was the one who controlled the power, so it is not an exaggeration to say that it was Gia 11's original combat ability. A venerable level being retreated back violently with an extremely ugly face. A huge gap was cut open on his shoulder by a sword. And what makes him and the other venerables around him uncomfortable is that this Gia 11 seems to have been used to fighting with their venerables for a long time. If he was greedy for power and wanted to harvest the lives of the venerables just now, then it is absolutely impossible for his sword to move so fast. In other words, he himself will stay on the spot for a while, and those venerables behind him will have a chance. Even if they don't attack, the one who was hit on the shoulder the venerable level will also have counterattacks. It's a pity that Gia 11 seems to have known this for a long time. He clearly had the strength to kill this venerable person just now, but he didn't want to be greedy at all. He just made a shallow slash and then penetrated into the subspace. At just the right moment, a few venerables behind him arrived just in time. A creature with a drill-like fist stabbed his drill down, completely shaking the subspace. Gia 11 in the subspace couldn't hold back this time and spurted out a mouthful of blood. Gia Yan was deep in the subspace, with a trace of expectation in his eyes. Whether a truly strong man will achieve success in the future does not depend on his performance when facing the wind or holding a sharp weapon. The key lies in his performance after being injured. Now that Sun Tzu is injured, how he performs next is what Gia Yan really wants to do. Watch. Is he more powerful, or is he simply frightened and afraid to fight back? Please remember the first domain name of this book. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2511. The Jiayan Rockman clone stared at the battlefield with bright eyes. Of course, he was also preparing to prevent any accidents, because even he was not sure whether his grandson would die in this melee, so he had to cheer up. If he couldn't save it, he should save it. If you don't save it when the problem arises, it will definitely lead to big problems. Injured? Nothing more than that. Geo family. What a loud tone, but they are only at the starry sky level. What are you pretending to be? The scene of several venerable level warriors joining forces to injure Gia 11 made the powerful venerable level warriors who came to attack let out a long sigh. They know that the Geo family is also an ordinary existence, not just the kind of terrifying monsters that can kill the venerable in the stars. there is a chance that it shows that the Geo family is not at the level of disregarding their hierarchy. This also means that the gap between the two parties is not as terrible as they imagined. Is it? Gia 11's voice came out clearly in the subspace, and then a long sword was shot out from the subspace. The sword stabbed a venerable level being, stabbing him to pieces. Although Gia 11 was injured, he was used to such attacks and injuries because he had been tortured by Jia Yan countless times in the illusory space with illusory strong men. Especially before being attacked, he used the method taught by Jia Yan to reduce damage to himself, which caused the enemy's energy to be unable to attack his vital points to the maximum extent. Therefore, this injury seemed serious, but in fact it was just a minor injury. Only in this way can we have the power to fight back. Can you still unleash such power? This is not borrowing the power of his family, so what is it? It's just a strong person with a strong background. If you have the ability, you can use your own physical strength to fight us. These venerable level creatures were injured one after another, but two more venerable beings came from behind. One of them happened to have extremely strong perception ability, and instantly blocked Gia 11's attack path. Only then did no one suffer any harm. The venerable level died, otherwise there might have been deaths in this situation where many people were besieging Gia 11. You want me to fight you with my own strength? I rely on my family. Haha. Gia 11 laughed sarcastically inside the subspace. I have a baby, and I have a family behind me. Why is it not my strength? If this is unfair, why would a force of your strength come to bully such a small civilization? Isn't this fair? Or is it? You just have double standards? Then we have nothing to say. Gia 11's words directly silenced those people who wanted to make excuses and accused Gia 11 of being a venerable person who used external power. Yes, if Gia 11 uses non-original power and family energy, which is cheating and unfair, then if they, a group of strong men who far exceed the strength of this civilization, come to wreak havoc on the mother planet of this civilization, will it? Isn't that fair? They clearly know that there are not many strong people in this civilization, but they still use so many powerful people. Does this mean that they are just relying on their powerful background? At this point, these words have become a deadlock. Just as they do not recognize Gia 11's strength as their own, it is impossible for Gia 11 to admit that their attack on this civilization is fair. The intruder is still being reasonable, what else is it but a joke? Gia 11 is not the kind of person who likes to talk. Unfortunately, he has to use his words now. It was as if he knew from the beginning that their mission was just to escape. This time when Gia 11 fought against so many venerables, he did not come with the intention of killing as many people as possible and defeating many venerables, because he understands that with your current combat power, trying to achieve this is just a dream. It is extremely shocking for a being who is essentially a starry sky level person to be so presumptuous in front of a venerable level person. If he still wanted to get more profits, the only possibility was not that he escaped unscathed, but that he died under the attack of a group of venerables because of Yelang's arrogance. Gia 11 was originally a bit overconfident, but in the illusory space, Jia Yan taught him what it meant to be unable to be extremely happy and sad, and what it meant to be absolutely weak in strength, so his state of mind, at least when it came to fighting, had changed. Little strong temperament. He understands what kind of things he can try and what kind of things he can't even think of trying. Over here, kill. The venerable being with keen perception was not able to completely restrain Gia 11, but his keen sense really restricted Gia 11's movement in subspace. This time, Gia 11 didn't even have time to fly out of the subspace for a sneak attack before he was discovered by the venerable level creature. The remaining venerable level creatures aimed at the sky and tore a huge gap in the subspace. Gia 11 inside felt a shock all over, and there was painful blood flowing from her nose and the corners of her mouth. It's no longer possible. We can't beat them, but over there are several venerables next to the spaceship. I need to get more space for the spacecraft to leave, otherwise we will all be left here. It's not like Gia-11 hasn't thought about escaping into the subspace alone. But the problem is that he knows very well that without the energy help of the sword, his real level is just a starry sky level, which is reflected in his special subspace ability. His subspace assault combat ability was specially trained in the illusory space. It is quite effective at short distances. He is so elusive that even the master level has to be hit. But in essence, his subspace ability is not strong enough at all. If he really wants to use this ability to escape, the most likely possibility is that he will be chased and attacked by a group of Lord-level people from the outside world, who will kill him like a target. There is no other possibility at all. So he could only try his best to find an opportunity to trap the Venerable here, and then use his last strength to escape into the spacecraft, fly into the sky with the spacecraft, and rush into the gravitational waves that were secretly turned on tonight. This is the entire process of the entire plan. As for the more detailed aspects, no one can plan it. Just like the master tactician in the spaceship, his plan may be detailed, but it is all without intelligence. The plan supported by the support is like a duckweed without roots, a castle in the air, with no real feasibility at all. If it is really followed, I am afraid that everyone in the current spaceship will be stunned and unable to make any decision because the situation is different from the plan. Reacted. Boom. Outside of the spaceship on the other side, it is not without defense means. This base itself is a standard thing that can resist the Venerable level. Although it is absolutely impossible to truly resist the Venerable level in terms of actual combat effects, to a certain extent, it can at least in a short period of time, real resistance or even counterattack is at the Venerable level. Even if it is just a small civilization, this small civilization is also a civilization near the Empire. If it really wants to develop technology and military, it is not too far behind. Is this a turtle shell? You can't hit it? Don't worry, they use disposable steel and have no ability to recover at all. As long as we continue to attack, we will definitely beat this spacecraft to pieces. Great, good luck. On the side of the spacecraft, artillery fire was no longer raging. The artillery fire coming from all directions stopped. Instead, 5 Venerable level people came to the spacecraft. Every time they hit, the spacecraft became shaky. People screamed, because the space shock caused by the strong man's attack alone was an absolute killing weapon. There were already casualties without even breaking into the spacecraft. Haha, a group of useless bugs actually want to escape from the planet we are surrounded by. Are you crazy? The Venerables just smiled jokingly. Looking at the team on the other side that dealt with the Geo family, it seemed to go very smoothly. Even though the Geo family still caused a lot of injuries to them, no one died. And now it seems that this Geo family member is at his limit. That's the end of it. Therefore, these 5 great sages are completely relieved. Today's action is definitely a great victory for them. If the Geo family can't be killed, it's better not to kill them. For us, the Geo family and the Imperial Princess are the same, and both have great use value. Yes, it is best not to kill. The 2 nobles looked at each other during the conversation. In fact, they didn't know that if they didn't kill the Geo family would have a high possibility of escaping from this battlefield with their subspace abilities. But they are not afraid that Gia-11 will escape, or in other words, they expect to see such a scene. Because the existence of the Geo family is really terrifying. Although they had known about the existence of the Geo family when they were in the outer star field, they only really knew that the Geo family existed after they actually invaded the Orion arm. The energy in Orion's arms, and what abilities they might actually have. Even a young man who randomly walked out of Gia's family seemed to be wreaking havoc on their Venerable level team, not to mention that there were so many strong men in Gia's family, and half-star level strongmen seemed to kill star level ones. Many. This is something truly terrifying to all outside powerhouses. Of course, what scares them the most is the supreme and strongest person in the Jia family, Jia Yan. This is the reason why even the leader of their forces dare not step into the Orion Arm. If a lot of data hadn't shown that Jia Yan was not in the Orion Arm, maybe this operation would have affected their star territory at all. Don't dare get involved. If you provoke the Jia family, then provoking the Empire are two completely different concepts. Let go. Another venerable level quickly read the meaning of the words of the two venerable levels, and then nodded quickly, yes, we still have to capture them alive as much as possible. If we can't catch them, we will let them go. If he escapes, there is nothing we can do. The several distinguished masters who besieged the spacecraft quickly reached an agreement. However, if their agreement was known to their colleagues on the other side, they would probably be scolded by them. Because it is extremely difficult for them to kill Jia 11 now. Even if they don't hold back, the seemingly weak starry sky level existence in the subspace has always been like a fish swimming in the water and cannot be caught no matter what. Die. Don't even think about it. In the shallow layer of the subspace, Jia 11 suddenly used her own positive and negative power, and covered her body with blood to avoid a big hand that reached into the subspace. The owner of this big hand is a venerable being from the outside world. His arm can withstand the pressure of the shallow layer of subspace, so he is the main person attacking Jia 11 now. It's a pity that although Jia 11 hid beautifully, because of the huge difference in strength, he hid in an awkward manner and suffered several serious injuries. Senior, it hurts so much. I have never suffered such an injury in my life. Jia 11 almost cried. Although his personality is a bit like that of Jia Yan back then, he is the apple of his eye who has never suffered any real hardship. It was the first time he encountered such a terrifying and bloody battle today, and it was a good thing he didn't collapse on the spot. Boy, what are you doing now? Stand still and use your sword with all your strength. If you can't even do this, you are not worthy of being a member of the Jia family. The sound that seemed to come from the hilt of the sword gave Jia 11 a shot in the arm. He quickly raised the sword in his hand, and then resisted it. Coincidentally, a bombardment of brainwave power came from the outside world. It was blocked by his sword edge. The sword edge deviated a little from the trajectory, but the energy was also blocked by the sword. The front was blocked. Find the book garden. Jia 11 took another step back, and with a pop sound, more blood spurted out. If his son Jiarong saw this scene, I'm afraid he would be so angry that he would kill all the venerables present one by one. It's a pity that Jiarong is not here. Jia Yan, the grandfather, doesn't seem to have the feeling of being a kid from another generation, so he ignores Jia 11's bloody battle without any heartache or anything. Boy, think about these days of training and these hours of planning. If you can't even get through this, are you worthy of your family? Are you worthy of your grandfather? Look at your perseverance, go out and say you are a member of the Jia family. I'm afraid you are embarrassed, just stand still and keep fighting. Roar. Jia 11's eyes were blood red, and the words spoken by the senior in the sword seemed to have stabbed the deepest weakness in his soul. As a member of the Jia family, this is the most noble thing about him, but the thing that hurts him the most is his identity as a Jia family member. This title of the Jia family directly gave him a great status, but at the same time, it also restrained him. Although he was a genius before, he was not much better than his father, let alone compared with the legend. Compared with the ordinary Grandpa Jia Yan, this is a huge pressure on him, and after going to aliens, many civilizations, although they did not say anything, could see Jia 11's true strength, but they just smiled and learned from him, seems to see that the essence of the Jia family is basically a weak family, a family that only relies on its grandfather. With this kind of look, Jia 11 has seen too many, and has been despised too many times. It seems like a friendly civilization, but in reality, it is looked down upon. Can Jia 11 not see that? Please remember the first domain name of this book. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2512. Now, he finally gained strength, but because of his perseverance, he suffered a little injury, so he cried for his father and called his mother, and refused to fight. Or even give up your own life. Impossible. Roar. Jia 11, who had always been calm as water, became crazy because of Jia Yan's few provocative words. He was unwilling to give in, because he had always known that if children born in a family like his could not develop, how could other beings who were born ordinary develop? The most powerful one is also his grandfather Jia Yan. He was an extremely weak human being back then, but now he is an extremely terrifying existence, unfathomable. Such a grandfather must have been much more difficult for him than he was back then. If you give up like this, it would be too embarrassing. Even if you die, you will be the one being laughed at. Jia Yan smiled slightly in the subspace. This child is indeed still a child. He has acted mature in the past because he has seen a lot and has a good tutor. But deep down, he is no different from ordinary children. Pyridine. A ray of sword light slashed out from the subspace. This time, Jia 11 actually withstood a venerable level attack and broke out of the subspace. There was a bit of strangeness in the eyes of the venerable level, and then he sneered disdainfully. He believed that his attack power was definitely much stronger than Jia 11's. If the injuries were exchanged, he would definitely have the advantage. But he forgot that Jia 11 is from the Jia family. The scary thing about the Jia family is that no one knows what will happen. At that moment, Jia 11 exploded, using his extremely strong combat power, and activating the strongest swordsmanship that Jia Yan told him, using part of the sword's lifespan in exchange for the strongest attack power. He figured it out, that is, if he died here, would it matter whether the sword still had life? It doesn't matter at all. So instead of fighting with this precious sword, it's better to just use all your strength. After he figured it out, his thoughts became clearer. Without any hesitation with his sword skills, he used all his strength to slash at the venerable level existence in front of him. Since you want to die, then, I don't care whether you are from the Jia family or not. Go to me, huh? No. The venerable level being was originally smiling, preparing to use his venerable level attack power to crush Jia 11 in one breath, causing him serious injury or even death. But after laughing, he suddenly discovered that the power of the coming attack was far beyond his imagination. This is like a master level amplification move, or even a self-destruction level of power. No, the Jia family really still has the strength, please save him. We can't save it, we're not fast enough. This. The venerables around them originally allowed Jia 11 to fight with that colleague, because Jia 11 was able to injure them earlier because Jia 11 was using his unique subspace ability to pursue and escape. Reason. But now that Jia 11 has escaped from the subspace, they are not worried at all that anyone will be injured again, because everyone can see that Jia 11's frontal combat effectiveness is simply not enough to compete with the normal venerable level, and he had been injured in continuous battles just now and had lost a lot of strength. In this way, no one would think that Jia 11 could cause too much harm to their venerable colleagues. But at this time, they reacted. It was not without reason that Jia 11 dared to go out and take the initiative to attack. As a member of the Jia family, it was impossible for him to become passionate and fight to the death because of the coercion of himself and others. There's no reason why he couldn't be so brainless. And now, he has used the invincible power carried on the sword's edge to tell them what the reason is. That is, this young man's sword actually seems to be able to self-destruct part of it in exchange for Jia 11's strength being increased. This The venerable level didn't even have time to react. Under the huge pressure of this blow, he suddenly spit out all the power of his venerable level in order to be able to withstand the power of this blow. But how could such a powerful force be resisted so easily? After all, when Jia Yan originally made this sword, it was so that Jia 11 could use it longer, so the power of a simple explosion was equivalent to the self-destruction of a supreme master. Of course, the specific power depends on how much Jia 11 can activate, and how he controls it. Since he had not experienced any exercises in the illusory space before, it was naturally impossible for him to burst out with much power and waste the life of the sword for no reason. But now, he has made the fake sword explode in the illusory space no less than 100 times, so of course he has great experience. Therefore, after the explosion was released, even if the venerable level in front of him used all his strength and went all out, he still could not survive the power of the explosion. Pyridine. The venerables around them were staring at the center of the battle where a strong light erupted. At the moment when they were unable to react, in the next moment there was only a sword light, which broke through the venerable. The back vest of the beast-level creature protrudes from it. The body exploded instantly. Jia 11's body penetrated the body of this venerable person, and then exploded violently. The whole person was like the reincarnation of the sword fairy, directly killing the behemoth several hundred meters tall. At this moment, Jia 11 was like the legendary Jia Yan, the strongest person on earth. In a trance, everyone present saw the shadow of Jia Yan's original quiet yet extremely powerful personality. The 3 generations of ancestors and grandson directly overlapped at this moment, making people see clearly the greatness of the Jia family. Died. Really dead, and it was one blow. It's the power of the Jia family's treasure again. The power just now is clearly the explosive power of the giant Mosquito. You are despicable and shameless, and you are borrowing the power of the outside world. Junior of the Jia family, do you dare not use the power of the outside world? This group of venerables all had stern voices, but they suddenly retreated. In this battle, they originally thought that it would be impossible for a venerable level person to die, but now it seems that they are still not safe at the venerable level. Jia 11, a junior of the Jia family, has already killed 3 venerables, and now he has used strange power to kill one of their colleagues. Therefore, he can definitely kill the venerables. It's not an accident. Even though he was using outside help and things from his ancestors, this was also Jia 11's actual power. Calling Jia 11 despicable is nothing more than incompetence and rage. Ha ha ha, really? Is it despicable and shameless for me to use the power of my family and the power of the outside world? Very good, I have thought about it. So what if it is despicable and shameless? War and fighting should be despicable and shameless and use everything possible. Means. Yes, from now on, I will be despicable and shameless. What's wrong? Next, not only this guy, but also your lives will be harvested by me. As long as you win, you don't care what kind of power I use. Jia 11 finally thought about it. Yes, he was a little simple and naive in his heart before. He just didn't want to use the original power of the sword. On the one hand, he really didn't want the sword in his hand to lose its life for no reason in this place. On the other hand, he felt it was a bit excessive. After all, from birth to now, he had been mentioned by countless people. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and everything borrowed the power of his family. All these past events led to Jia's death. 11 doesn't want to use family power because it will make him think that it is not his own ability. But the rage just now and the deep feeling of powerlessness made him understand. You have power, no matter what kind of power it is, as long as it can win, then use it. If you are too rigid, you will only die. The process is not the goal, the result is the goal. So it was absolutely the right decision for him to use the original power of this sword. Very good, This kid is thinking too hard. If they don't decide the future with a sword, they might really fail. Jia Yan watched all this indifferently in the subspace, and then slightly agreed with his grandson. This child's character gradually changed into a real fighter. I was too young before. Even if I learned a lot of practical skills from Jia Yan, if I don't change the things deep in my heart, I will still be unqualified. Now it's starting to look a bit like that. What kind of weapons, what kind of warrior's heart, what kind of things don't want to use the family's things, this is completely meaningless to those who can really fight. The meaning of everything is to win. If you lose, no matter how much you pay attention to, what will happen? What's the use? Kill. After using his own sword, Yu Feng discovered the happiness of the moment. That was so enjoyable. Although every time he uses the sword, he will consume his most handy sword, but the burst of power will definitely make him feel extremely comfortable. It is like consuming, spending a single amount will make him feel comfortable and happy. Come again. He turned his head and stared at another venerable level. In fact, there is also some thoughtfulness in Jia 11's impulsive behavior. Because he knew that the contents of his sword might not be able to support the killing of all the current venerables. Even if he could support it, his own body and energy couldn't support it anymore. Because even if he just borrowed the energy of the sword, it doesn't mean he doesn't need to use any of his own strength. You also need strength to activate it, right? When you kill people and act quickly, you always need to go all out, right? After going back and forth like this, even if his body doesn't seem to use much energy, in fact, every move he makes is with all his strength, which consumes a lot of energy. After a few moves, he will be exhausted. Therefore, in these few moves, he must show off all his combat power, scare all the venerables, and create the latest vitality for the escape mission. On the spaceship behind them, a group of people who were already desperate just now were so stunned that they didn't know what to say. Because the situation that was originally thought to be hopeless turned out to have new life because of Jia 11's explosion again. How many trump cards does Jia 11 have? Suya was speechless. Jia 11 used some unique method to kill a star, and until now, she still doesn't know how many trump cards she has. Is this the background of the Jia family? She almost wanted to cry. Why didn't her imperial family, which seemed to be on equal footing with the Jia family, not have such a deep foundation? Who is the inheritance of thousands of years? The energy of the Jia family is really incredible. Beside the princess, her maid let out a long sigh. She was just thinking that if Jia 11 was in danger, she, a strong person at the top of the starry sky, would have to push out. It would be best if she could save Jia 11. One life, because Jia 11's life was too important. If he died very close to the empire, the Jia family might have to quarrel with the empire in the future. But now, she knows that she no longer has to fight to the death, and this war will not reach such a terrifying level. The whole reason is that Jia 11's trump cards are so many that even she is stunned and can't even imagine them. This is still a spirited young man who goes out casually, and he has such a background. He didn't even kill the star class at the beginning, and now he is surrounded by a group of venerable level people, and he uses his background to deal with it like this. How difficult is it to kill the Jia family? She couldn't understand. Pyridine. At this moment, several venerable level people outside the spacecraft were preparing to prepare a big move to break the shell of the spacecraft, and then kill the team that wanted to escape. But the battle situation there suddenly changed, and a group of them suddenly no longer dared to stay any longer. Go over and help. Damn it, this Jia family is so serious. Everyone felt extremely uncomfortable with the difficulty, terror, and various methods of the junior Jia family member. They rushed forward. They only knew that the current team besieging Jia 11 was no longer strong enough to deal with Jia 11. They had to step forward to support, but they forgot that if they surrounded the point for reinforcements, the life and death of the spacecraft would attract. Gia-11 takes the initiative to come to them and wait for work. This is the best strategy. But at least for now, their subconscious reaction is the best choice in terms of normal combat. Suya, start the spaceship quickly, use the fastest power, quickly. I can't hold it for too long. On the other side, although Gia-11 once again used his sword to kill a monster several hundred meters tall, his momentum plummeted again. In this way, even if the sword can still hold up, his energy can also hold up. Can't stand it anymore. So when he saw that the group of besieging venerables beside the spaceship had attracted their attention, he was overjoyed and suddenly transmitted his brainwave power to Suya's ears in the spaceship. Ah! Okay, turn on all the power of the spacecraft immediately, maximum power. Yes. Inside the spacecraft, the crew who controlled the spacecraft's actions quickly followed suit. Your Highness Princess, then, what about Your Highness Gia-11? Don't worry, he will come back, I believe in him. Suya shook her head. She knew that since Gia-11 asked them to start the spacecraft, they would have the ability to save themselves, so she believed in him. M.X. Please remember the first domain name of this book. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2513. If she thought the Geo family was similar to her own family before the recent days, then from today onwards, she no longer thinks so. The Geo family had so many tricks that even her scalp was numb. Young man from the Geo family, you killed the venerable leader of my army, now you have to pay for it with your life. The 5 venerables surrounding the spacecraft now rushed to Gia-11's side. Amidst the roars, each of them used all their fighting energy. In their judgment, no matter how strong the Geo family is, no matter how terrifying their background is, they can't push a young man to a level that exceeds all the venerable levels, right? So they were betting that this young man's strength would fall under their hands. And to be honest, even if all the people in the spaceship are gone, as long as one of the Geo family can be dealt with, even if it is killed, it will greatly increase the morale of their coalition forces and severely damage the morale of the Orion arm, so as long as the target is this young man has enough. Moreover, the most important point is that even if the spacecraft enters space, what will happen? The surrounding stars are all their friendly forces. It seems that the spaceship is not a being that can occupy the right of speed. If they are chased even a little bit, everyone on the ship will die. Therefore, after dealing with Gia-11, it is the safest way to deal with the spaceship. This is the reason why the 5 great sages are besieging Gia-11. Are you coming? Gia-11 was already seriously injured. Even though he had killed several venerables, his losses and injuries far exceeded imagination. Here you go, boy, you can still perform one last time. After the performance, this sword will be finished. Whether you can enter the spaceship and escape depends on your final ability. Deep in subspace, Jia Yan was also a little nervous. Of course, he is not worried that his grandson will die, but he is worried about whether his grandson can do all this well. If he is reduced to having to rescue himself in the end, it will be a kind of disappointment for both Gia-11 and Jia Yan. He will be disappointed that his grandson's genes have not fully passed down his success rate in a last-ditch battle. As for Gia-11, her newly established confidence will be greatly reduced because of her failure in this battle, which may affect her lifelong path to becoming a strong person. So Jia Yan is nervous. Puff. The sword flower bloomed in the surrounding circle with one blow. If Gia-11 uses the positive and negative power of the sword to fight explosively, just by using his strength, then Jia Yan would not be worried, but in fact this is not the case. The power of this explosion is strong enough to kill a revered person. But that's it, and the power of killing needs to be controlled by Gia-11 herself. The direction, angle, and timing of activation of the sword light, everything must be weighed by the user before it can be used. If it is used once you lose your accuracy, it's like wasting an opportunity for no reason. GA11's blow was released just now. Haha, Junior, is this your accuracy? Sure enough, the existence of foreign objects is nothing to be afraid of. The venerable person targeted by GA11 had an arrogant expression on his face. He came to GA11's side from behind with great disdain, summoned all his strength with one blow, and suddenly cut off his own head. His head is a sharp hard shell, like a bird, but not that similar, because the race from his hometown is a race that burrows into the ground, and the spikes on the head are extremely hard. Get out of my way. How else can we say that in critical moments, human potential is endless? What's more, he is still a talented young man. At this juncture, GA11 had an idea and used the power of the positive and negative force explosion to push himself away without Jia even teaching him. In situ. It's true that he is a weakling, and his strength is probably that of a starry sky level. But as long as he uses all the available items around him, his strength will increase by leaps and bounds, and his creativity will be extremely strong, which will prevent him from being killed so easily. Just like now, his attack failed. But even if the enemy enters his dangerous area, he can still think of ways to dodge. Good boy, just this moment of inspiration is enough for me to judge that your future is no worse than I imagined. Without the protection of the Jia family, you will be a strong person. Jia Yan was so relieved to be inside the subspace. His position for his grandson was that he would at least cultivate to the star level in the future. Now, the child's battle-ready state also made him determined. Own thoughts? If Sun Tzu can cultivate to the star level, then the status of the entire Jia family will be considered stable. Let's see how far he can persist. This sword doesn't have much power left. There are a total of 9 great masters besieging Jia11, and several others are flying in from further away. It will take some time, but they will come eventually. The spacecraft has also been flying on the ground near the high place in the sky for a long time, and now it has begun to accelerate. If the acceleration is successful, they will use all the propulsion force to quickly enter space, as Jia11 said. There was not much time left for Jia11. Whether the spaceship took off first or the venerables arrived, he was pronounced dead this time. Although it is impossible to die in this way, because Jia Yan will take action, the result will still be extremely bad. Jia11's future will be equivalent to a death sentence. Jia11 also understood the current situation, so he suddenly used his strongest fighting mode. Although he didn't learn much in the past few days, the fighting methods Jia Yan taught him were all the most suitable for Jia11, and he still used the sword technique, which was the strongest after the explosion of positive and antimatter. Combat moves. Coupled with Jia11's first subspace ability, he was able to escape undefeated at the hands of several venerable level men. Horrible. It's really scary. Jia family. Is it such a powerful family? It's just a starry sky level existence at best, but using his family heirlooms, it can actually reach such a level. You fought us all to a draw, and now you're still running away. What is the power of that explosion? I was scratched just now, but I feel seriously injured. And he seems to be getting more mature quickly. Get rid of him quickly, otherwise you will have to die. It's a human price. The strong men who besieged Jia11 were also frightened at this moment. Their 9 great sages were more numerous than those who besieged Jia11 just now, but the siege by so many people did not do anything to Jia11. Of course, in a siege, the more people the better. Just like now, it is impossible for any of them to attack Jia11 all the time, which is likely to cause accidental injuries, so there are 3 people destroying the surrounding areas. The stability of the subspace has resulted in less and less room for Jia11 to move around in the subspace. Fortunately, with the strength of the venerable level, it cannot cause a large area of subspace to be shattered and cracked. At most, it will cause instability in some places, and it will return to normal after a few breaths. Therefore, GA11 often has a way to escape their interception. Ha! GA11 is already tired. You must know that not long ago, he was just a heaven-level existence. During the last star-level attack, he broke through to the starry sky level before the battle, and then gained the ability to fly freely in the starry sky. In other words, he is still unfamiliar with fighting at this level, let alone the sky. Now he is rushing to the top and directly fighting a group of venerable level. In terms of the span, even the original Jia Yan can't compare to him. This kid has already dodged so many fatal attacks. Very good. I saw the right person. Being in the subspace, Jia Yan looked at the desperate boy outside, and his recognition of his fighting ability and talent gradually increased. This boy's father, Jia Rong, did not get Jia Yan's approval. Even when he saw him fighting for the first time and using the power lent by Jia Yan still shook his head a little, because at that time it can be seen that Jia Rong really has no talent for fighting. Jia11 is different. In the face of battle, his combat IQ is extremely high, and he can also use some skills that Jia Yan is amazed by. Click. When a venerable level used his fingertips to pierce into the subspace, pointing directly at Jia11's chest, preparing to kill the panting Jia11 with one blow. Jia11's sword edge resisted the tip of the finger, and a force of positive and negative forces exploded, allowing him to avoid the fingertips attack. What? This time, the sound of surprise was not from the venerable level outside, but from Jia Yan in the subspace. You know, Jia Yan is a senior domain master, and even he can exclaim in surprise, which is absolutely amazing. This kid, just now, he actually used the positive and negative forces in his body to collide with the positive and negative forces on the sword. As a result, the loss of the sword was not that great, and he could still gain a certain amount of strength. The explosive power, can it dodge the attacks of powerful people? It's simply amazing. What surprised Jia Yan was Jia11's creativity in this battle. Although for Jia Yan himself, these small ideas were too crude, and many of them had already been mastered by him. But just like this, although Jia Yan knew this move without even looking, this move was something he had never used before. Of course, the reason for this is also because after he became the territory lord, most of the fighting equipment around him was completely useless to him, and it was impossible to create such a fighting method. It's not impossible to use this method to create some yin-yang Dao artifacts in the future. This little guy can really surprise people. Jia Yan revealed a little joy. There is no need to look at the results anymore. Because after developing this new fighting method, Jia Yan was already sure that this little guy could definitely escape to the spaceship before the sword became useless. Even if the spaceship drove away, he could still use the weapon on the sword. The power escapes to the gravitational wave space in subspace. Sure enough, when Jia Yan relaxed, Jia11 in the subspace was like a child who finally found the correct fighting skills. His face suddenly showed joy, and then he used his full strength to resist blow after blow. Attacks from the outside world, and during a certain attack, he straightened his sword and stabbed the venerable person outside. Ah! I'm injured. This kid is too scary. Wait for me for a while. I want to heal. No, what kind of swordsmanship is this? The energy is too weird. I can't do it either. Wait a moment. The venerables were hit one by Jia11's terrifying swordsmanship and energy. In the end, 3 venerables fell behind in a short period of time. Jia11 just fought and retreated to the spaceship. At this moment, the spacecraft was no longer waiting for Jia11. It used up all the engine thrust and gradually increased its speed towards the sky. Just because the essence of this spaceship is that it is still the remaining flight function of the base. Its actual flight ability is very weak, and its acceleration ability is even weaker, so the speed of setting off is not as fast as imagined. It would take at least 10 seconds to become extremely fast, making it difficult for even the venerable level to catch up. In these short 10 seconds, Gia-11 found a way to enter the spacecraft. Puff. Gia-11 was already on the verge of collapse. Although her eyes were still blazing, her body was still extremely honest and turned into a pool of blood. He can't hold on anymore, everyone, come on. The leader of the group of venerables is actually a middle-level venerable man. Among the group of venerables who are coming, he is almost the most powerful person. Just as he finished speaking, Gia-11, who had been escaping, once again had the strongest light in his eyes. A sword light, accompanied by the flicker of his eyes, suddenly flew out of the subspace, and then shot through his throat. Well. This middle-level venerable being really didn't expect that Gia-11 would find him, the toughest enemy, to attack, so he was shot through the throat by the sword light without even raising his strength. Just now, Gia-11 has been using his body energy to react with the energy of the sword. Although it is some kind of novel idea, how can his body energy be compared with the power of the sword itself? So the power he has been exerting has been not strong enough. This group of venerables misunderstood that Gia-11's sword was about to run out of energy. Now the attack of the sword is actually the positive and negative power of the sword itself. Once struck, even the middle-level venerable can't react. This is dead. Even the mid-level venerables died so simply. They have too many cards. Please forgive me for not fighting anymore. If I continue to fight, I will just die. Let me forget it. Anyway, these people are not too important. We can't catch the Geo family in front of us at all. More venerables became timid at this moment. Because they lost their leader, and Gia-11 was still able to kill an intermediate venerable person when he was in such a precarious state, although they also knew that Gia-11's current combat power might no longer be able to use several similar attacks, but so what if there is only one left? Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2514. Even if Gia-11 had only one last blow left, they wouldn't dare attack. Because among the 4 or 5 current pursuers, no one can guarantee whether they will be the next to die. Escape. Taking advantage of this group of venerable level creatures, they finally became hesitant. Gia-11 in the subspace spat out a mouthful of blood again, and then rushed towards the spacecraft. And he deliberately concealed the appearance of the sword in his hand, because his sword was already full of cracks, and some fragments were falling downwards, obviously trying to destroy it. Senior, this sword can no longer be used. What should you do now? Don't worry, if it's broken, it's broken. But aren't you possessed by this sword? Gia-11 was injured in the subspace, but still paid close attention to the movement of the sword in her hand. He was afraid that the sword would be destroyed, and he didn't care much about the sword itself, but more about the so-called senior possessed by the sword. Haha, stupid boy, no matter how stupid you are, you should have figured it out. This senior is not someone who is really committed to a sword. Don't worry, even if the sword is destroyed, I will still exist for a long time. Just let it destroy it, you will get a better sword in the future, and I will not die. Jia Yan controlled the Stone Man clone and transmitted the message calmly. Is that so? That's good, that's good. Gia-11 has long been suspicious. He feels that the strength of the senior is definitely not as simple as he previously understood. In other words, a sword will not be a place for the senior, because the power of the senior cannot be so terrifying. Degree. Now that the senior himself has confirmed it, he is relieved. After all, if the senior has no place to stay due to his excessive use, it is equivalent to death by his own hands, and he will feel sorry for it. Ping. As he spoke, the sword in Tiangui's hand was broken into large pieces, but at the same time, Gia-11 also used the forward and reverse collision force of the last fragment to increase his forward speed by a lot. Cut. Senior. Senior. Are you still there? At the same time, although he quickly approached the spaceship ahead, he couldn't help shouting around the subspace, for fear that his senior would lie to him. Don't worry, kid, I'm still here, but because my spirit is no longer on the sword, I may spend less time talking to you in the future, so you know better. Yes, senior, as long as nothing happens, I will be able to escape successfully as soon as I enter the spaceship. Thank you, senior, for your guidance along the way. Feeling that the terrifying energy in that power had not weakened at all, Gia-11 knew that the senior was just as he imagined, and his soul was not destroyed by the shattering of the sword, so he relaxed and urged him with all his strength. He activated his own energy and quickly chased the spaceship that was about to catch up in front of the subspace. Princess, the spacecraft has reached the final critical point. If we don't take off at full strength, the engine will explode. Princess, give the order. Inside the spaceship ahead, a girl was being urged by a large number of staff in the control room. Suya was extremely uncomfortable. The choice before her now was to suppress the speed of the spacecraft and wait for Gia-11. The other option was to set sail immediately and use the fastest speed to escape from this civilization. Main star. Everyone around her was urging this girl, even if they were older and more senior than the imperial princess. At such a critical moment, they seemed to want to shirk their responsibilities and pass all orders to her. Suyat. In this way, if the Geo family comes to investigate in the future, the only person responsible will be the imperial princess who gave the order. Will the princess die due to the anger of the Geo family, or will the empire pay some other price? For them, it has nothing to do with them. This is a perfect way to avoid responsibility. Although Suya has a noble status, in essence, she is still a 16-year-old girl. She has never experienced such a situation. Her lips are about to be bitten by herself, and her whole mood is extremely complicated. Although she also knew wisely that Gia-11 used her body as a bait and was besieged by several great sages. No matter how scared she was, no matter how many trump cards the Geo family had, it would be a disaster. They waited here in vain. But some inner expectations and some weird mood still made it difficult for her to make a choice. Make a decision quickly, princess. Even the maid who stood next to Suya like a mother sighed and urged Suya. How could she not know that her little princess didn't want to make the decision to leave, but at this moment, if Suya didn't give the order to leave, no one else would dare to give the order, and Master Gia-11, this magical person from the Earth young man, isn't his purpose just to make the spaceship leave quickly? If they gave up such a great opportunity and couldn't escape, wouldn't they have failed Master Gia-11's wish? Me. Suya lowered her head unconsciously, and big tears rolled out of her eyes. Although she already knew that after the melee just now, in the battlefield behind her, the life or death of the young man was unpredictable, and might even have become a corpse, but she really didn't want to give such an order. And now, I am recalling all the stories that happened between me and the young man in this short period of time. They were flirting and talking about famous celebrities that both parties knew, and some scenery and scenery. Secretly, everything is like a beautiful dream. Not to mention, the boy who usually looked like a naughty boy risked his own life to save her several times in a few hours. Now, the dream is about to wake up. Her princess dream has not achieved any results at all. Is it about to end? She was crying, trying to give an order. Puff. Suddenly, there was silence all around, except for a slight tearing sound coming from the front of his body. A pair of familiar shoes and a familiar piece of clothing appeared in front of her as she lowered her head, but the shoes and clothes were stained with blood. Familiar outfit, familiar figure, familiar everything. Suya suddenly felt her eyes filled with tears, and the tears were rolling down her face. The familiar figure gently touched her big hand to her drooped head and gently stroked her soft hair. Haha, didn't I say that if I was late, you would just give the order to leave? Why are you still crying? The extremely familiar man's voice sounded in Suya's ears, and she felt that the big hand touching her became more supple. You bastard! Suddenly, Suya seemed to have broken free from all restraints and raised her head suddenly. Then, under the surprise of the boy who showed some surprise in front of him, the astonishment of a large group of subordinates around him, and the slight pause of the maid who was like a mother, Suya suddenly threw herself into the boy's arms. Then, a soft little mouth blocked the boy's mouth, making his eyes widen. Well. Jia 11 was shocked. He never thought that he would have anything to do with this imperial princess. Shouldn't the relationship between the two parties be hostile? In addition, didn't this princess reject her marriage a long time ago and hate herself extremely? Then, why? He doesn't understand at all. The surrounding people, including the maid who had taken care of Suya for 18 years, all became dumbfounded under Suya's impulse. But soon, they reacted. Ahem. Lord Jia 11 has returned, hurry up and set sail. Go all out. Oh, yes, wow, my eyes felt so sore just now and I couldn't see anything. Haha, yes, it's a coincidence that I didn't see anything either. Hey, why is the spacecraft's not control system broken? Damn it, nothing was taken. But I will fix it soon, don't worry. The crowd around them seemed to have seen nothing, ignoring the two boys and girls who were kissing passionately. Of course they didn't dare to react, or even say that they had seen this scene. The relationship between the Earth and the Empire was extremely delicate. It would be okay if the two of them went smoothly, but if the two of them couldn't go on smoothly, then they who witnessed the scene might be the next missing person. In this case, the only best way they can choose is to ignore it, express that they did not see it, and they will never spread this matter in the future. There was no sound of wind. So while everyone ignored them, the two young men hugged each other for a long time. Then, under the violent acceleration of the spacecraft, Jia 11 hugged the petite girl in her arms, and the two of them became less childish. When did you fall in love with me? Or how can one say that Jia 11's emotional intelligence is higher than that of Jia Yan, the straight grandfather? He asked in the first sentence. I don't know, anyway, I just like it, can't I? Well, yes, no matter when you fell in love with me, from now on, I will also like you. Jia 11 smiled softly. Deep in the subspace, the stone man's mouth is open in an O shape. Jia Yan was speechless and a little depressed. It's so uncomfortable to watch a grandson's adventure and even see a big ball of dog food for himself. Jia Yan cursed, this brat, I don't know where he learned the skills to pick up girls, so that even the princesses of the empire secretly fell in love with him. Why don't I have such a good experience? Oh, it's really true. It's so annoying. I'll go back, forget about having a wife at home, anyway, my wife is more beautiful than this granddaughter-in-law, The Satsuma temple on Earth never expected that while her husband was busy at the RV, he would hug her directly in front of the two children for no reason. The kids are watching. Don't worry, we didn't do anything, we just held him. Jia Yan seemed to be holding his wife, but his teeth were itching. This dad is indeed a bit crazy. On one side, Jia Rong, who was stuffing firewood into the homemade cooking utensils, felt that his father was mentally ill. Of course, if he knew that his newly grown son was having an affair with the princess of the empire right now in front of his grandfather, he would probably feel something strange. This kid is about to fly into space. I'll make his dream come true soon. Inside the subspace, the clone of Stoneman Jia Yan is already gearing up, preparing to let his grandson taste the bitter taste of love for the first time. Boom. With the two young men embracing each other, the spaceship had gotten rid of all the pursuers and entered the height of space. It's just that in this space, a large number of enemy troops have been waiting for a long time, seeming to catch the turtle in the urn and eliminate it directly in the sky. Several huge battleships have already lit up with fighting glory, seeming to shoot the incoming spaceship into dregs in the air. Behind the spacecraft, two venerable level figures took off in an extremely embarrassed manner at this moment, following step by step behind the spacecraft. As human-looking venerable level beings, they can naturally be protected by spaceships, so they don't have to worry about the large number of battleships ahead. But at this moment, these two venerable level beings were also extremely frightened. The intensity of the battle just now made them extremely uncomfortable. The subordinates they originally wanted to take with them had no choice but to give up. It was already a luxury for them to escape. Hasn't the so-called gravitational wave cave entrance arrived yet? Damn it, the enemy army is about to shoot. You know, although our venerable class is not afraid of ordinary troops, the Space Force is also extremely dangerous to us. Yes, if we don't find the entrance to the cave later, we will be the ones who die. These two nobles believed Suya's words about the gravitational wave cave, so they dared to take risks with them. But if they can't find the entrance to the cave, then they will not be taking risks, but will be buried with them. Just as the two venerables were extremely frightened, looking for a battleship in the sky above Shiyuan, it had already opened fire, and the defensive cover of the spacecraft was shimmering, just shy of disintegrating. The critical moment comes. Pyridine. A huge black screen appeared directly in front of the spacecraft, and at the same moment it appeared, the head of the spacecraft had entered the gravitational wave system. It's here. It's so close, haha, if God doesn't kill me, how will the enemy hunt us down now? Come in quickly. Puff puff. The entire gravitational wave system is different from the subspace system. Once a gravitational wave hole appears, the surrounding attack energy, as long as it does not exceed the gravitational wave system's ability to withstand too much, will be swallowed up by this gravity. Therefore, the large number of battleships currently the fire was fired, but it did not directly hit the spacecraft or the two venerables. At most, it was hit by the aftermath, and there was no possibility of harming lives. Boom boom boom. Not long after, under the earth-shaking huge gravitational bang, the spacecraft entered the gravitational wave system. All the enemy warships around were stunned. They never expected that there was a large hole in the gravitational wave system in the atmosphere near the civilization. If they had known about it earlier, they probably would not have allowed this spacecraft to come to this high altitude. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Buletin U. Chapter 2515. Of course, it is impossible to know anything in advance. Wouldn't that turn into a clever plan? There is no regret medicine in the world, so it is a certainty that the Imperial Princess and the legendary Geo family members will escape from this gravitational wave. Chase. Chase me. The gravitational wave system they use is definitely not stable, otherwise it would have been commercialized long ago. As long as we search well, we may be able to see their shadows within tens of thousands of miles nearby. Boom. In the twisted gravitational wave space. After entering the gravitational wave space just now, the entire hole has become quite unstable. This kind of space is a test product for the base. Even after they made such a gravitational wave hole, they did not notify the upper authorities because there is still a hole in the hole. There were too many loopholes and failures, so after the huge body of the spacecraft entered it, the entire hole began to collapse. The two human form venerables behind the spacecraft were also in an extremely embarrassed state at this moment. Fortunately, their bodies were small enough. After reluctantly following into the gravitational wave space, they used their venerables towards the rear. With the power of a human-level brainwave, he bombarded the entire gravitational wave hole behind him, and then he chased after the spacecraft with his expression twisted in great pain. Fortunately, at this moment, the people on the spacecraft had no intention of crossing the river and destroying the bridge, so the speed of the spacecraft slowed down a bit, and then opened the rearmost bridge entrance and exit. The two venerable level beings, this is when their life force is exhausted. Before, I entered the interior of this spacecraft that has unique resistance to gravitational waves. Hoo-hoo. This is truly the most thrilling adventure I have ever had in my life. Yes, I didn't expect to survive, ha ha ha. However, we still have to be vigilant, because this gravitational wave space seems to be stopping not far ahead, and we will be forced to appear in the space not far away. It is still the enemy's territory. Let's go and listen to what the people on this ship have to say, especially the Lord of the Geo family. What he said must be very suggestive. After the two venerables rested for a while, they got up and walked deeper into the spacecraft. Even though there are thousands of people in this spaceship, because human beings are not large in size, the entire size is not as large as that of an outside creature. It is only more than 100 meters long and more than 20 meters high. The biggest feature is that there are many floors. With more than 1,000 people working and doing things in it, it is simply not too spacious. Hello, sir of the Geo family, I wonder where our journey will take us in normal space. Is it over there? Didn't you escape very far at all? The two nobles came to the command room and saw Gia 11 covered with scars, and Suya who had Gia 11's head resting on her lap in fear. They are also human beings. They are so close to these two extraordinary people that they stop looking at them for a moment, saying that they have not seen anything. Of course, my heart was definitely in turmoil, because this explained why the powerful young man from the Geo family was willing to risk his life to protect the spaceship. It turned out that the two little guys had become lovers. Naturally, they didn't know that these two young men had just confirmed their relationship. That's right, that's where we go. It's the place where we can escape farthest and have the smallest trace of the enemy. There's nothing we can do about it. This gravitational wave channel is still in the early stages of design. If we had known, we should have done more to improve it. Of manufacturing. The person who answered them was not Gia 11 or Suya, but a female researcher who seemed to be concentrating. She stared at all the data on the digital screen, and occasionally talked to her colleagues around her, but she never looked at the love scene between the two young people from the Geo family and the imperial princess behind her. The two venerables seemed to ignore the two young men clinging to each other, and walked to the researcher's woman with extremely solemn expressions on their faces. Is that so? It seems that there will probably be a hard fight ahead. Alas, this spaceship cannot withstand a lot of damage. It does not seem to be designed for combat. In this way, the probability of our escape will be very low. Still not high. Such doubts made even Gia 11 and Suya, who were looking at each other lovingly, turn around in surprise. There was a little helplessness in their brows. Because everyone knows that escaping from the main star is only the first step. If it were just to escape from the main star, there would have been many opportunities before. Unfortunately, they did not do so, because an interstellar war is not an interstellar war. Since it is an interstellar war, the attack is naturally within the scope of the entire star field, and the enemy has already mastered this starry sky. Except for a small area controlled by the wandering troops of this small civilization, other places can be said to be full of enemy shadows. At most, they can only rely on the starry sky to be too big, and they can escape quietly in the cracks of the enemy. But here's the problem. If they want to escape quietly, their spaceship needs at least a certain degree of maneuverability. However, this spaceship can barely manage long distances. But before they get the right to speed, whether it is starting speed, turning, etc. It can be said that the mobility of the series is not there. An ordinary patrol warship can blow them up with one shot. In other words, there is no guarantee that they will be safe if they escape from the planet. Even if they leave that war zone, they are likely to encounter more and stronger enemies in other war zones. It is said that even the half-star level dealing with the troops of a small civilization on a nearby resource star. Oh, yes, even if we escape the planet, it will be difficult next time. Jia-11 let out a long sigh. But he didn't even wait for Suya beside him to comfort him, and his brows furrowed again. Because at this moment, he heard the words of the senior who originally thought that he would not be able to speak to him for a long time. Young man, I have said that as long as you escape from the planet, I will give you a reward. In addition to the sword, since you managed to escape from the main star within 3 days, the consequences of such recklessness must also be solved by me. Then you can rest and recuperate in this gravitational wave. With me here, when you go out, it will be calm outside. Ah! Senior, are you telling the truth? Didn't you say that you can't take action? Jia-11 spoke hesitantly, almost stuttering. Suya, who was beside him, heard Jia-11's soliloquy. The two venerable level people in the distance also heard it. Even those present with strength above the heaven level could hear Jia-11 seemingly gibbering. Their ears pricked up. After all, the key words in Jia-11's soliloquy include senior. This kind of thing is not something that can be said lightly, and this statement would be applied to other people, even to venerables. There is no possibility of people having too much reverie, but if this kind of words is thrown to the Jia family, it is a bit interesting. After all, the many eye-catching things that Jia-11 had done before were really not something that an ordinary starry sky level being could do. But now he actually said the word senior without asking anything, and his words immediately made people think about it, and even sketched out some kind of big plot. Of course, what they think in their minds is their business. How the current situation will develop is something that Jia-11 himself cares about very much. Silly boy, why do you trust others so easily? Haha, learn to be smarter in the future. Not only can I take action, but I can also do many things that you can't even imagine. Ha ha ha. Also, be careful with women. Okay, that's all, I'm going to be busy, and I'll give you some peace of mind in 2 days. After that, you have to promise me to go home right away, your parents are waiting for your return. Ah, my parents. Okay, senior, I want to ask, senior. Jia-11 was confused when she heard what she said. She said it well, why did she suddenly mention her parents? But he wanted to ask questions one after another, but he only heard no response at all. Moreover, he realized that he was in front of a group of people and it was not good to talk too much, so he kept silent sharply. 11, what's wrong? It's nothing. Okay. Anyway, we don't have to worry about our safety. Don't worry, there is a trustworthy person who has promised to help me. What Jia-11 said directly shocked everyone present. Then, a strange emotion and half-joy made everyone present stunned for a while, and then they were filled with joy. On the other hand, the two venerables were a little frightened. They looked around, then thought about Jia-11's conversation, and then thought about Jia-11's abilities, and thought about the guarantee Jia-11 said, and suddenly felt that there might be a super scary big shot beside them. In the following time, the news that Lord Jia-11 had a protector by his side quickly spread throughout the surrounding spacecraft. People became excited instantly. Of course, it is natural that the Jia family has a certain protector. Didn't even Suya, one of the many princesses, bring two venerable beings with her when she went to the border for business talks? However, people have much higher expectations for the strength of the protector of the Jia family. As for the venerable level, today's Jia-11 is definitely a venerable level guy. He is even much stronger than the ordinary venerable level. I didn't see how the two venerable level people who came to the spaceship treated Gia-11. Does Zeta respect you so much? On the one hand, it was Gia-11's identity, and on the other hand, they witnessed Gia-11's battle on that civilization's main star. He was definitely a being who was far superior to them, so their attitude towards Gia-11 was naturally that of a strong man. However, no one knows what kind of existence that mysterious person is. Is he a half-star sent by the Gia family, or a star? The Orion Arm people who lack imagination only have this definition of strong. In their imagination, the strong person who protects Gia-11 is only 1.5 star level at most. Even if he can stand up to the sky, that is just a star. You know, although the Gia family and even the Earth Alliance do not have another star class besides Gia-Yan, in fact, the Gia family has already conquered several star classes for their own use. Although they serve Gia-Yan, and now they have returned to their own star field, but as long as the Gia family needs to be summoned, they will definitely come to their master's side again. Therefore, although the possibility of Gia-11 having a stellar protection around her is not very high, it is definitely possible. Even Gia-11 himself, at this moment, thought that there might be a star level protecting him. The galaxy level he thought before was still a bit too exaggerated. After calming down, he thought that the senior was the possibility of star level is the greatest. But all of them have probably never thought that this so-called protector is not only not a half-star level, but even far more than a star level. Even if Gia-11 was a little bold before, she was wrong in guessing that the senior must be a galaxy level. Because this existence is beyond the primary level of the galaxy. Has reached the domain master level, even exceeding the level of an ordinary domain master, and is already a senior domain master. He is Gia-11's biological grandfather. He is also the most important person in the entire Orion Arm and the Earth Alliance who can achieve such status and identity in the nearby star field. He is also the patron saint of the entire Orion Arm and the last person in charge. Today, Gia-Yan naturally wants to fulfill the agreement with his grandson. At the same time, he has been a little bored for a long time and wants to test his skills, so he controls his Stone Man clone and flies to the outside world. That's right, his Stone Man clone also entered the gravitational wave space. Although Gia-Yan is a powerful person with subspace talent, where is the gravitational wave space that the current spacecraft has entered? Not to mention that his energy can enter the gravitational wave space in the first place, even if he has no experience in the gravitational wave space. If you enter with brute force, you will move many times faster than the speed of the spacecraft. It is just uncomfortable and not as fast as moving in subspace. In the deep cosmic space, the Stone Man's clone, which had been in subspace and gravitational wave space for a long time, squeezed out of the gravitational wave channel and appeared in normal space without any hindrance. Well, there seem to be quite a lot of enemies in this small civilization. Are they fighting on various resource stars and habitable planets? Oh, there is a half-star power in the distance over there. Wow, what a waste. A star level and a half, being tricked around by a venerable level, this kind of trash, it is better to die, and lose the face of us strong men. From a distance, Gia-Yan saw many powerful or weak auras in this vast starry sky. Of course, this power is only for the creatures in this starry sky. To him, it is all the same. Even the strongest half-star existence is nothing more than a minion. The kind that can kill you if you sneeze. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2516. Okay, now that you have promised your grandson, you have to do your job well. At least if your grandson guesses it is me in the future, my grandpa can be more handsome, so do it. Gia-Yan smiled, then moved slightly. His movement seemed like an ordinary movement of a huge stone man, but it was unpredictable what kind of bloody storm would follow in this area. Dryad, a person from an alien planet, a planet dominated by vegetation. As the strongest person on the planet and the only semi-star level, this tree demon creature actually does not have too much murderous intention. In his past life, he did not have much war experience. Because the vegetation creatures on their planet are all existences that advocate peace, and because their food is just the sunlight or radiation of the star, even if he has reached the semi-star level, but he usually practices in an ordinary state, he wants to compare for good results, just go to a place relatively close to the star to absorb the radiation, and you will get extremely strong cultivation results. So he is not that aggressive, nor does he have great ambitions. But the problem is that the price offered by their domain master this time is too high, and it feels like coercion and inducement. For the price and the safety of so many trees and grandchildren on his planet, he has to go to war. This is why, as a half-star strong man, he was delayed a lot of time by the troops led by a venerable level strong man in this small civilization. Sir, that guy's battleship has appeared. We must have surrounded him in a trap this time. As long as you give the order, the army will attack together and kill him to pieces. Well, very good. I'll leave the rest of the affairs to you. Don't tell me that I still need to do it myself at this stage. The huge tree monster has opened up a large space in the universe, like a goddess scattering flowers. Although it is only half a star, its coverage range is more than 2 kilometers, which is much larger than that of an ordinary star. Much smaller. The Dryad was a little tired, not because he was tired from fighting, but because he was not used to such a battle and felt tired. It is simply unimaginable for the creatures on our planet to fight so hard and destroy other species so easily. Even if the animals on our planet fight each other, we will stop them. It's a pity that the outside world is like this. Ah! This tree demon seems to be sighing, and seems to be unfamiliar with the feeling of this kind of battle. But those who know him will understand that in this war, he also did not kill the insignificance of this small civilization. Biology. He stood alone in the universe, but soon, the eyes of this tree demon creature became slightly frozen. Because, he felt an earth-shattering power gradually coming from a distance, and the owner of this power was as fast as the feeling of power coming. Are there any other powerful people in this civilization? Not just the venerable level? Or, in other words, a venerable level? Come here, investigate for me. If you can intercept it, intercept it? Really? No, I will go in person. A venerable level is the opponent I lack now, otherwise I will always be said to be the weakest half-star level among the territory lord's subordinates, which would be too embarrassing. Yes, this tree demon monster, even if he keeps saying that he doesn't want to kill, in fact, if there is a stronger enemy, he will be the first to take action. The same is true now. He feels that the person coming will be a venerable level. If it is a stronger one, he will step forward and kill the opponent personally. As a half-star level existence, it definitely has this kind of strength. And he can also gradually reflect his own strength into combat effectiveness through such battles. In the future, he will no longer be the weakest semi-star among the domain lord level forces. Even if he was born on a relatively peaceful planet, but after embarking on the path of becoming a strong man, he would no longer be able to maintain his previous attitude. In other words, no matter how you put it, he is already a strong man in the universe, with many stains on his hands. There were very few blood stains. No matter how much he argued in his heart, he could not quibble over it. The subordinate accepted his order and walked in the direction pointed by him. As for this tree demon creature, he stood in a daze in the starry sky. As an original tree, this kind of thing is commonplace for him. It can even be said that if he returns to his mother's breath, just like ordinary trees, sitting in a daze on the top of a mountain or something like that, but this is his favorite way to spend his free time. But soon, he felt a bombing sound coming from the distance, waking him up from his sleep. Huh? Does that venerable level being dare to fight back? That's right. We want to attack their civilization. Counterattack is normal. If someone attacks my planet, I will also fight back. But he may not know that he is now the counterattack is just like the way I counterattacked our territory lord. It is so ridiculous. A half-star strong man is here, doesn't this venerable level even feel it? Or is it that my strength is weak? So much so that he thinks I'm a venerable. This tree demon creature gradually increased its power, and then its huge tree roots and stems squirmed like flying towards the direction of the battle. He was ready to put an end to this farce personally. A daring venerable level man ran to the front of his army to cause trouble. To him, it was really just a farce. After all, for a strong man like him, if it was the venerable class who led the troops to cause trouble, and it was still a bit of a headache, but if it was just a venerable class person, then it was completely a matter of death. No matter how weak he is still a half-star level, one level stronger than the venerable level. Boom. In the normal space of the universe, the entire barracks was in chaos. Only a huge monster like a stone man could be seen, waving his fist in the vacuum of the universe and casually killing the warships and strong men around him. Huh? They seem to be quite big. Are they the kind of giant race that pretends to be strong? Huh, they killed so many of our troops, they are just looking for death. When the tree demon monsters came to the battlefield, they were first frightened by the stone man creature that attacked them. After all, its size was only 2 kilometers, but in front of the stone man creature, it was nothing at all. Everyone has it as big as 10 kilometers. But strength is not viewed in this way. If size can be used to determine strength, then the imperial people do not need to fight, because their race is the same as the people on Earth. No matter how strong they cannot become very big. Although this tree demon is not the kind of race that does not grow in size, he knows that there are certain special races in this universe that have extremely large bodies. Anyone who sees their size will usually be frightened. Jump, but in fact the strength of this race is average. In the eyes of the tree demon, the stone man creature in front of him now belongs to that kind of race with an insignificant size, because he only felt the strength of the Lord level from this person. Whether it is from the feeling of energy or the feeling of the opponent's shot, he is just a venerable level, so if he takes action in person, he is absolutely sure of it. It just so happened that my subordinates were all saying that I couldn't kill the venerable commander of that small civilization. Now that they are all frightened by the size of this stone monster, I will kill it myself. In this way, my prestige will also increase. It's only right to get further growth. When the tree demon thought of this, he felt that his idea was so good that the leaves were squirming. Are you coming? Not far away, the Jiayan Rockman clone transformed into a venerable level, calmly killing the battleships and spaceships around him. He just didn't use the fighting power of the Stone Man clone. You must know that the actual combat power of the Stone Man clone is the strongest among all his clones. It was even able to deal with Domain Lord level existences when using Shang Jiayan's terrifying explosives. So when he saw a half-star, he didn't feel anything at all. He even thought that he could glare him to death with just one look. But he didn't do that, because the reason for the commotion here today was not to kill this half-star, but to gather as many enemy troops in the universe as possible, after all, to kill 1.5 stars. The star level is simple, but there are too many enemy troops scattered around here. What should I do if they start to escape after killing half of the star level? Jia Yan promised his grandson that he would clear out the enemies in this starry sky, but he couldn't break his promise. It would be a bit tiring to chase him down, so he used this method of hiding his clumsiness. This strong stone man, are you passing by, or are you a helper of this civilization? If you are just passing by, please retreat on your own, otherwise don't blame me for being ruthless. The giant tree creature came to Jia Yan. Although he said more civilized words, his actual actions blocked all Jia Yan's escape routes. It was obvious that he did not want Jia Yan to escape. Oh? A strong man who pretends to be a gentleman? Haha, that's rare. Jia Yan blew up a battleship, and then looked at the half-star tree demon that intercepted him with some surprise. He was not surprised by the other person's appearance, but because of what the other person said. To be honest, there is no shortage of tough-minded strong men in the universe, no shortage of hot-blooded strong men, and no shortage of badass strong men. However, strong men who speak like gentlemen are rare. Because of this, a strong person may have a good reputation in ordinary planetary battles, but in the starry sky, he is the type that cannot survive. After all, we are not of the same race, let alone people who are related to each other. You treat everyone like a gentleman, so who will believe you? Over time, those strong men will become ordinary strong men. Those who cannot change will be directly killed in certain battles by strong men who hate such a character. Therefore, it is rare for Jia Yan to see such an existence. Sir, what do you think? Do you want to leave, or do you want to stay and be killed by me? My strength is 1.5 stars, stronger than you, so you can't beat me, so choose the former option. The tree demon creature said calmly, but he blocked Jia Yan's entire retreat, looking hypocritical. But just like this, Jia Yan was extremely moved when he heard that there were many enemy soldiers and officers around him, thinking that this boss was a compassionate being worthy of their trust. They would follow such a strong man in the future. He will definitely not be killed as cannon fodder. Pity. Jia Yan could see that the tree demon creature in front of him was just used to living a life without fighting against the world, but his eyes did not contain the slightest compassion. Even if he looked carefully, he was full of murderous intent. How could such a strong man treat such a strong person like him? His subordinates are relatively friendly. He just doesn't want to do anything, but he doesn't value life. Haha, Your Excellency, I am also entrusted by others. Well, since you think that I am not your opponent, then just show me the truth and take action. Jia Yan smiled, then raised the fist of his stone man clone and struck away fiercely. Facing a tree demon monster that was much smaller than his own body, he was like hitting a mosquito with a cannon, with no feeling at all. But in this case, he couldn't kill the opponent with one punch. Boom! The tree crown above the opponent's head suddenly squirmed, and Jia Yan's fist was caught in the tree crown, and then his triumphant voice continued to sound. As expected of a venerable who dares to attack a half-star strong man. Your combat power is indeed extraordinary, but I am a half-star, not something you can imagine. If you want to admit defeat, it's not too late yet. That said, but his tree roots were already squirming, rolling towards Jia Yan's stone man clone, and he was about to roll the stone man clone into a palm. Roar! Jia Yan roared seemingly very hard, tearing apart the roots of the tree next to him, and then punched back. What? Isn't it an ordinary venerable level? You really have the confidence to attack the semi-star level. Very good. It seems that I have to concentrate on dealing with you. The dryad was startled, and then it cloned itself from the stone man. You punched, I hit the tree root, you kicked, and I hit the tree crown. You came back and forth, and it seemed as if you couldn't tell the difference in an instant. And while they were fighting, not far in front of the troops led by the tree demon, there was a pile of meteorite fragments, where a large number of small civilized battleships were hidden. What? Is there a strange strong man to help us fight? Very good, no matter what the opponent's purpose is, but since he can stop the tree demon, this is our opportunity to attack. This fleet is none other than the well-known general of the small civilization who has been delaying the army of tree demon creatures. He is also one of the few venerable masters in the small civilization. They were already forced to a dead end when they knew that the outside world was suddenly coming. A terrifying venerable level being actually fought to a draw with the tree demon. Feeling that an opportunity had come, he suddenly sent his troops to attack. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website.